I've been in and out of here all day.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's 5 p.m. and I would like to call the August 23rd, 2022 meeting of the Hayden City Council to order. May I have a roll call of the council members, please?
Council President Roeder,
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest,
Yes.
Councilmember Satterfield,
Yes.
and Councilmember White.
Yes.
Would you all please stand with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next topic is additions or corrections to the agenda. I would like to make one correction myself, assuming that the council members are all right with it. I think that most folks are here this evening to talk about the law enforcement issue, and that is number 4 right now. I would like to move that ahead of the number 3 items for the other public hearings. Is council all right with that? Do you have a consensus with that?
Yes.
Great. Yep. Are there any other additions or corrections?
Yes.
Councilmember White.
Yes, I would like to postpone item G in the consent calendar, the approval of Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, state and local project agreement for Crawford Park improvements until a future meeting.
Okay, do you have any idea when that future meeting might be?
It could be the next meeting.
The next meeting?
Next meeting
All
is
right.
fine.
Council members, do I have here a motion to take G off the consent calendar?
I'd like to ask why, I guess.
Okay.
Yes. I would, I just feel like it hasn't been discussed yet and the public hasn't been informed, and I just got it in my hands myself a few days ago, but it's a big document. I'd like to look at it deeper. I don't think we should rush into it. It's going to involve a commitment of $540,000 in city funds. And it's also going to, let me read just the summary. The city's Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application for improvements to Crawford Park has been approved for funding. The next step is for the city to enter into the state and local project agreement before advertising for bids. And I believe that this is something that is in perpetuity, and it places the property of the park under more bureaucracy and ties the park to the state and the Conservation Fund. And I would like to get further opportunities to look at it.
Do we have any other discussion on the subject?
Is there any, are there any time constraints to this issue? And if so, what are they?
The project has to be completed by 12/31/23, and we have to do quarterly reports as we're progressing through it. So we were supposed to be, it's been delayed a little bit, and so we are already kind of behind on this project in order to complete it by 12/31/23.
Do we have to commit to anything in the next couple of weeks, I guess, or would this?
Well, we just have to get going. It was approved on August 1st, so time is ticking as we go along. So we can't start the project until we get this approved.
Mayor, I have some questions.
Yes, Council President Roden.
Tell me if I understand this right. This is a matching program.
Yeah.
This program was in place or something like it when we funded Honeysuckle Beach, Land and Water Conservation Fund.
Yes, and the whole rest of Crawford Park is Land and Water Conservation Fund funded.
So it's a matching program where we put up 50% and the grant, which is a grant, it's not a loan, it does not have to be paid back. And the $500,000 matching, correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to come from our parks impact fees.
Yes.
So we already have the money.
Yeah.
So this is all in place, and this would put the park into perpetuity if we do this, correct? Which it's already in a park
I was
anyway.
going to say the park already actually
Is a park.
is. Yes, so And the rest of it is.
So the current Crawford Park is under, already there were federal dollars, state dollars put in under a grant for that, as well as Finucane and Honeysuckle.
So it's already the 10 acres that funding would go to improve is already in the park.
Yeah, the 25 acres that's already done is land and water conservation. This additional 10 would also be, and it would help complete the park.
Thank you.
If it needs to be delayed 2 weeks, it's not gonna, we want to get working on it, but it won't, it's not gonna, I don't think it'll harm the project with everything that we have going on the next 2 weeks.
Councilmember DePriest.
Yeah, another question, if I may, to Mr. Boyer and possibly legal. Is there anything in the grant that will tie us to the state, or are there requirements of the state or and the like that I believe is what the concern of Councilmember White, I believe?
I reviewed the agreement and there wasn't anything out of ordinary in the agreement. I would also ask as a point of clarification for Councilmember White, if she would like this to be removed from consent and as a separate action agenda item, or can it be placed on the agenda if this is approved as a consent item in the future?
Councilmember Satterfield, do you have any comments?
No, other than I think we should just proceed because being familiar with grants, I don't see any problems with it.
Further comments, council members? May I have a motion, please?
I make a motion that we postpone the item G on the consent calendar until the next meeting of the Hayden City Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I have a second?
Is that approval with everything else on the consent?
I would like to remove the item G and postpone it.
Additions or corrections.
May I have a second? Hearing no second, motion fails. Ladies and gentlemen, although the council meets generally every 2 weeks, the city itself does business 5 days a week. There are some things that the city does that require the approval or the consent of the city council. And that is what is before you on the number 1 item, the consent calendar. I'd like to read those items, please. 1A, approval of the July 26, 2022 city council meeting minutes. 1B, approval of appointment of Edward Poletsky to Parks, Recreation, and Community Forestry Commission. 1C, approval of Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board wastewater treatment plant facility upgrades payment request. 1D, approval of the 22 to 24 City of Glens Falls co-sponsor contract. 1E, approval of Raintree Estates acceptance of public infrastructure. 1F, approval of New Frontiers East First Edition acceptance of public infrastructure. 1G, approval of Land and Water Conservation Fund grant state and local project agreement for Crawford Park improvements. 1H, approval of run against traffic event permit application and loudspeaker request. 1I, approval of change order number 1 for the 2022 chip seal project. 1J, approval of JUB Engineers 2022 General Engineering Services Agreement for consultant services. 1K, approval of JUB Engineers, Inc. authorization for contract amendment. 1L, approval of bills for payment. Council members, do we have any discussion on any of these items? Councilmember DePriest.
Thank you. This is a question about item HI, I guess it is, the change order for this chip seal. What happened there, I guess I should ask? Was there increase in prices, or $35,223 is pretty significant?
The project came in way under what we expected the project budget to come in on. And so we had quite a bit of excess money to complete the project. So we took advantage of that and did some other minor things tied to what was being done. Like we went through the intersection at Honeysuckle instead of stopping short. And so we just kind of expanded a few things to pick up some gaps. And then the other part of it is we estimate the areas. And then when they actually get built, we actually measure them and we actually pay on the actual measured quantity that gets done. So they rarely ever, the bid on a unit price project rarely ever matches the actual units, because when they get measured in the field, they're not exactly the same as what we estimated them to be. So it's some of that also.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on the consent calendar?
I'd like to make one comment.
Yes, sir.
I really like the job that we're doing on our streets. They're really nice. I want to thank our public works, the contractors that did the work, because it's smooth and clean, and it's a lot better than some of the other cities.
The chip seal project this year came out really well.
It did, yeah.
Other comments from council? Hearing none, I call for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So motion.
Second?
May I have a second on approving the consent calendar?
Oh, I'm sorry, I seconded, Mayor.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember Satterfield,
Yes.
Councilmember White,
No?
Council President Roder,
Yes.
and Councilmember DePriest.
Yes.
Motion passes. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have a rather interesting council meeting. Normally, we have one area for public comment. Tonight, we actually have 5. That's why we asked you when we were coming in to please try to specify where you were planning on making comments at, or multiple comments. You're certainly welcome to do that too. We have 3 public hearings tonight, and we also have an item on the base budget election ordinance for law enforcement. If you have comments on any of those items, I would appreciate it if you would hold those for now. You will have an opportunity to speak later. However, if you have comments on anything that is not on the agenda tonight as an action item, please, we would be very interested in hearing from you at this point. I have 2, yes, ma'am? Did you have a question? Oh, yes, ma'am, I've got them there. Okay. Comments are limited to 5 minutes. I would appreciate it if you would, when you stand up, if you would please state your name and whether or not you reside in the city of Hayden. And I will have a card that I will raise for you at 4 minutes to let you know that you've got 1 minute remaining. Our first speaker is Mr. Paul Akiyama.
My name is Paul Akiyama, resident of Hayden. First of all, Mayor Forsyth, thank you very much for coming out to speak to our annual Stone Creek HOA meeting. It was much appreciated. I am here to correct the comment made at the last council meeting, August 9, 2022, during the roundtable public discussion about me. With due respect, Council Member Roder mentioned a neighbor told him I was collecting contributions to hire an attorney to assist with Stone Creek North Wetlands topic. Because of this report, council entered into a special session following the council meeting. The report from the neighbor to our council member Roder is not true. I am not collecting contributions to retain an attorney. I ask that the apparent decision made during this special session to sequester our mayor and our council members from speaking or meeting with me to be retracted. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Teresa Roth.
what I'm talking about, the details for the council, if you could pass that.
If you, ma'am, if you could leave one copy with our city clerk, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I'd like anybody in the audience.
No, ma'am, you're speaking to the council here, not to the audience today. Thank you.
Anybody that's interested in the I would be very happy to give you this. My name is Teresa Ross, and I am a homeowner and at Hayden Homeowner. I am going to talk about problems with the city's zoning regulations and point out some of the problems with them. It's very difficult to make these comments in 5 minutes, so I'm going to read very quickly. And I've made a handout that details things because, of course, with zoning regulations, the devil is in the details. I need to give clear examples to show how the new zoning regulations are much worse for the citizens of Hayden than the old regulations, and that cannot be done without actually looking at the code, and that's what this is. Okay, so last year, the Hayden City Council adopted an ambitious plan for densification, and at the same time, they re-implemented a version of the zoning regulations that was completely different, not completely different, a lot of it was the same, but parts of it were extremely different, and in all the cases where they made changes, they made them to the detriment of the citizens and to the benefit of investors and developers. Whoever wrote these and promulgated these zoning regulations was not working for the citizens of Hayden, but for investors and developers who wanted free reign to build massive apartment complexes without having to deal with resident opposition. The only thing I'm only going to talk about on this is the standards for approval of zone changes, but it's just one of many examples in the zoning regulations that are highly problematic. The zoning regulations are written in legal code and they're hard for people to understand, but I have looked at these in detail. I have a technical background and I have already pointed out a lot of these problems to city's officials. I've written letters, I've gotten no response, and I have asked specifically for a response and clarification and have been told that no response is going to be forthcoming. So the zoning regulations cover many topics. Only a few parts directly relate to citizen opposition to development in the city. But these parts have been rewritten or modified relative to the old version. And in every case, they were rewritten to streamline development and to strip regular citizens of their right to protest. This is wrong and it cannot be justified. The city council passed this new zoning ordinance in the spring of 2021. It was most zoning updates are minor. And in fact, I think there's one on the code tonight. This was not a minor update. This was a huge, massive overhaul of the zoning regulations. Whole sections were eliminated, added, or reorganized. It's important that the zoning code was reorganized. The reason is it makes it almost impossible for anyone to do a side-by-side comparison and see what they were doing. This is what this handout is about. It shows just two parts of the zoning regulations where they were completely rewritten to the complete absolute detriment of the citizens of Hayden. Within a year of passing this massive overhaul, 3 of the employees involved with the new city's plan resigned, so they can't be held responsible, and 3 of the representatives were replaced, so they can't be held responsible. There's huge problems with the zoning regulations, and nobody's in charge, and nobody's responsible, and nobody wants to deal with them. And they are hurting Hayden residents right now. For the rest of my time, I'm going to talk about the standards of approval for zone map amendments. This issue came up at the planning zoning hearing when the city planning director explained that the current standards for approval and told the residents that if they did not address those standards for approval, their comments would be ignored. Even after a 10-minute explanation, nobody in that room understood what she was talking about. The new standards of approval are very incomprehensible and they have nothing to do with citizen concerns. They're basically a rubber stamp for the new zone map amendment.
Ms. Roth?
Yes, no wonder Hayden residents think that attending planning and zoning hearings are a waste of time. They are a waste of time. No wonder they think they're not listened to. They are not listened to.
according to official zoning regulations, the planning zoning commissioners cannot consider resident concerns. There's no basis on which they can be addressed. And these new zones are new. They are only 6 months old. The ones that were in place 16 months ago were much more friendly to Hayden citizens, and there was no excuse for replacing them in this way. It's a scandal. The new standards are grossly unfair to existing residents, and the city council really needs to deal with that. As a minimum, they should put the old standards, as a minimum, they should put zone map amendments and conditional use permits on hold until these old, better standards are restored. And these completely unjustifiable changes need to either be justified or fixed, and they're easier to fix than they are to justify. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And anybody who wants a copy.
Do we have anyone else that would like to make a public comment? Sir, would you? You have I'm sorry.
No,
I missed
he's
it.
just getting out.
What's a copy of what?
He just
No,
wants a copy.
he says he has a card out.
No, he just wanted a copy, Mayor.
You have a card up here, sir? And you're, okay, and your name, sir?
I have you for the law enforcement.
Okay, yes, sir. If you'd hold your comments for now, we'll have it. Oh, general comment. Yes, sir, please help yourself.
Could you fill out another card? Have him fill out another card for the record.
And sir, when you're done, I'd appreciate it if you'd fill out another card for the record.
Absolutely, I'll do that. No
Thank you
problem.
very much.
My name is Doug Fredericks. I do live in, a Hayden resident, live at 10312 North Bateman Street. Should always start these things out with a context when it comes to growth, because we talk about growth. Moved here in 1997. We came here via Fairchild Air Force Base, where I retired after 21 years in the Air Force. Prior to joining the Air Force, I'm from New England originally, went to high school in Connecticut, moved to New Hampshire for a couple of years before I joined the Air Force. My whole Air Force career was just a fantasy. Moved to New England, have a New England farmhouse, have the stone wall, have the bubbling brook. When we got to Fairchild, things didn't really change, but we just fell in love with North Idaho. We looked right past Spokane, and this area was where we wanted to be. I wanted to live in a rural area of Hayden, but my kids had been in 9 different schools in my last 5 years in the Air Force. So decided, let's go into a neighborhood where there can be neighbors and kids, and they can, both my children still live here, have friends from high school. So I don't regret that one bit. What I do regret is the growth that's taking place in Hayden. It's just been absolutely so, what I wanted and what it's become is just totally different. When we, again, context, when we moved here, the Albertson Shopping Center wasn't built. They did have earth moving equipment out there. They were clearing the land for the Prairie Shopping Center. So that gives you an idea of what took place. We live east of 95, down towards the golf course area between Miles and Dakota Avenue. And I watched almost every chunk of land, 2 or 3 acres with horses and cows, turn into little cul-de-sacs. And it was kind of slow and gradual, and wasn't anything that really perturbed me all that much. But here, this last 5, 6, 7 years, I'm frazzled by the growth. It's so frustrating to me. I believe one of the core issues, and I'm going to speak very much in a macro view, unlike more 15,000 foot view. I believe my heart of heart, the comp plan has to be reopened, period. I know there was a lot of time and effort put into it. I believe it was a very sincere effort and good intentions, but things have changed drastically since that was drafted and authored. I think the crazy uncle in the basement is the KCMPO planning document with the population projections for Hayden. I think your hands are tied somewhat, and the planning department's hands are tied by that document, projection 35,000 citizens in Hayden. And I think until you can cut the tie to that document, the community through the city council has to decide what the population is going to look like, not what a planning tool in a binder says what it's going to look like. And I think until we do that, I've heard it's going to cost quite a bit of money to do that. I hate paying taxes, but put it up there on my taxes to open that thing up. Whether it's 100,000, 200,000, that thing has to be opened up. You got to drive a wedge in that population projections. I just you can tell I'm passionate about it. I'm asking the council, and I'll say this, I am pleased as punch with this city council from what we came from to what it is today. And I say, I can look up, Roger, I don't know if you see me, but I only viewed it as a rubber stamp for development in the past, just boom, approved, variances, approved. That's laid the foundation, I think, for where we are today. And I also recognize, especially for the new council members, it's like when you become the president of the United States, you campaign on a certain platform and you're hypercritical about certain things. Then as soon as you win the election, before you even take office, you're given an intelligence briefing. You find these little nuances, and all of a sudden, hey, it's not as easy as we thought it was going to be. So I appreciate the fact that we're pushing a wet noodle upstream in a lot of cases, trying to overcome obstacles that are set in kind of a concrete. Okay, thanks. And so the only other thing I would ask is for the council to, it's been written I've written it in the Facebook pages. Don't feel like you're a housing agency for people that want to move here. Watch out for us, the current citizens, they're paying the taxes. They're trying to preserve somewhat of a quality of life that we come to expect. And you don't owe one person from one state, from one city, a house. You can do it great. And my final note is, I think you probably already do it, but filter out the fluff from the people that stand up here that want to put a development in. I get so tired of, oh, we want to help the 18-year-old kids get into high school. Oh, we want to workforce housing. It's fluff. It's trying to win you over. It's all about building houses and selling houses and apartments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fredericks, that was well spoken. Our next issue, since it's all right with council that we can move some things around, unfinished business, is we are here to discuss the approval of the base budget election ordinance, but I believe, Brett, you have some updates for us on that.
I'm just going to throw up one slide here. Introduce, I didn't know how many new folks would be here. Just one slide so we can hear from the public, but so tonight really, there were a couple reasons for the meeting tonight. One was to take public comment. Last couple of weeks, the council has been looking at ballot language, has been discussing the issue of doing what's called a base budget increase for law enforcement.
Brett,
Yes,
can you share your screen?
I thought it did. Let's see.
Those two little arrows up in the, no, not that one. Yeah, that one. Thank you.
So just a little bit of background. So the city did try this, the first attempt, November 2018, and that included road projects and some money for roads. And then in November 2019, we did it again just with law enforcement. That one also did not pass. I think it was about 52%. And both of those needed 60%. And also, if the council moves forward with putting on the ballot, again, it would be 60% instead of the 66 2/3 based on our low levy rate. On August 3rd, there was a motion, let me step back. There was a citizen task force that was put in place by this council to look at the statistics, look at what was going on with law enforcement. They met 4 or 5 times. They started in April. And then that group made up of, there were 15 folks. I think we lost a couple, were made up of citizens, and pretty much anybody that wanted to be on that was put on the citizen task force. And So they met, we had a representative from the sheriff's office, there were 2 council members on there, 2 staff members. In voting on the motion, the staff members and council were not voting folks on this motion. So motion was made by the task force on August 3rd, recommended to council to put on a ballot in November to add the cost of 6 more deputies, basically to our base budget. And so what that would do is take the base budget and increase it permanently by the amount of $597,843. The city is currently paying for 4 deputies in a contract with the county. And so we would, with the 6 additional, we would have a total of 10 deputies and 1 would be a school resource officer. Now, under current conditions, we were looking at evaluation, and we did receive the new total taxable value, and so that redid our levy rate for this year. And so we plugged that in, and actually the numbers are a little bit lower, and so the increase on a 100,000 valuation home is 1782. Again, under current conditions, and that's an estimate. So just giving some basic background information, and then tonight the idea was to take public comments about moving forward, to continue to move forward if there's any questions. The ballot language we were going to finalize, and there was some language that in state law that was passed last year that gave us a little bit of pause to kind of look at our language. And so what we're suggesting is not, at least from the attorneys and from our end, not to finalize the ballot language tonight, but to set another special meeting for next Tuesday, just to make sure that it's as clear as possible and correct. And, but still tonight is to continue forward and take public comment. So that is just an introduction to that, and I'll turn it over to.
Excellent.
I have a question, Mayor, for Brett.
Yes, sir. Council President Roeder.
My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that for our fiscal year 2020, 2023, that we have already approved a $300,000 in addition to what we had budgeted last year, which was around $400,000. So is that part of what?
Good clarification.
We, in other words, we've said, okay, there's a need. We're paying them $456,000, I think, last year, because we're around $400,000. It was overtime of $456,000. But then there was our budget that we approved for this coming year, starting September 1, has an additional $300,000 to the sheriff's department, which will make about $756,000 that absolutely will go to the sheriff's department next year. Is that true?
That's correct. And so I think there was a clarification also that out of the 597,000, so if this were to pass, the county is not asking for the 300,000 plus the 597. It would be a 597,843 increase to what we were doing prior to the 300,000.
For a total of 1 million?
So,
The total this year is 702,000.
So, and I think again, the reason we're giving you is when you look at our revenues and expenditures as, as a household or others, that we do have one-time money. We've had an increase in some of the other things. So we could sustain paying $300,000 for this year, or if we took it from other projects, we could sustain that. But when you look at the revenues and expenditures, we want to make sure that when we're putting deputies on, that's something that can continue on with the budget. And so, yes, we can fill the 300,000 with our carryover, our one-time money. But to continue to do that, at some point, we'd utilize that money on that instead of projects. And so we recommended that we would need to increase the base budget to actually pay for this in, in a permanent status.
What's the permanent, if this, as a language we have it, now I understand we need to modify it for whatever reason, I don't know why yet. But if we're already paying 400,000 and we're going to increase it almost 6, so will this be a permanent increase of a total amount of about $1 million that we'll be paying the sheriff department then?
It'd be the 597,843 plus the 400, I think it's around 423 or 402.
So
The 402 plus 597.
about $1 million.
That would be a permit, yes, to
And that's a
continue on for a
permanent-
total 10.
Expense or that the city will be paying in a contract to the sheriff.
Correct.
Councilmember DePriest.
I guess I'm just maybe a little confused, and I think I might have just figured it out here, but math, as I'm looking at it, is last year, I guess, 402,354 is what I'm seeing. And then this addition of the one-time 300,000 takes it up to 702,000. And my guess is that 702,000 is going to be increased by this up to what we're talking here. You got me lost between the 702 and the now 800 or 900.
So go back to the 402, so you would take the 402 plus the 597,843.
So it's
Not an additional 300,000 on top of that.
And where did that 300,000 addition that we're giving the sheriff's department, where did that come, where did that funding come from for us to be?
We call it the one-time money, meaning from growth and other things, we've been saving money that for projects like road projects and things like that. And so we're taking it out of the one-time money.
So that's equivalent to about 3 officers, roughly, 100,000? Isn't that a number we've been?
And that's what Sheriff Norris stated in the last meeting, is that they were hiring 3 new officers this year.
So that'd take us to 7 for next year, roughly.
Yeah, but I don't think they come on until April, You're gonna move? Sorry.
Hi.
I'm addressing the sheriff. I
Ladies and
apologize.
gentlemen, we're honored to have Sheriff Bob Norris here tonight. Mr. Norris, could you clarify that for us? Or pardon me, Sheriff Norris, could you clarify that for us?
We are going, is it on?
Yes.
So we are going to honor that contract effective October. Now, we're going to have some onboarding time on some of them, but we want to spend that money in the city of Hayden because there's a critical need for that service in the city.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions? Councilmember White.
Yes. I guess my question is for Mr. Boyer. Okay. So my question are for the council members, in between the times between 2019 and now, we've been stuck on a level plane of 3.5 for officers and about $400,000 going to the sheriff. My question is, why during that time have we been haven't been making a plan and looking forward and slowly increasing the budget to bring it up even just a little? I was expecting the task force to come forth with ideas of how we could be slowly increasing, have a plan, have neighborhood watch, different things like that. I feel like there's a big gap. I remember reading about, was in the Spokane Review about the 2019 vote that we had, and our mayor at that time, he said, if this levy doesn't pass, we'll stay at 3.5 deputies. And I don't accept that. Why did we stay at 3.5 deputies for all these years and not increase it slowly and have a gradual?
We have tried to patch that up according to what the needs are. So since 2019, we added, if you recall, I think it's been a year and a half or 2 years ago, we added $30,000 to cover their busy time during the summer. So they added some officers to help cover Honeysuckle, and that was at a request. So we did add that, and that's part of the 402. Then we also added an amount to help pay for vehicles. And I can't remember if we added 35 or if we went up to 70,000, because they had per vehicle 70,000 and we were doing half per year. So we have added since 2019, we've incrementally added based on the need that the sheriff has expressed to us to cover, to put the fires out, so to speak. And I think what we heard from them is to really solve this, it needed to be a big, it needed to not just say, every year we'll add 3% to the budget, that wasn't cutting it, that we're so far behind that we needed to do something significant in the budget to be able to cover, to pay for 10 deputies opposed to 3 or 4. Because if you look at, our budget, like in the city of Hayden, since I've been here 6 years, we really we've added in sewer, I think 1 person. We haven't added any staff. We've tried to make do with what we've had, coming in with revenues and expenditures. In the years that we saw an increase in sales tax or liquor, we've put that into a savings because we know those can drop, during the downturn years. And so property tax is the only one that you really can control. And so maybe that's more than you wanted, but budget-wise, we have added incrementally as they've requested and needed. But to solve this problem, we're a city of 16,500 to 17,000 people, and we're paying for 4 officers, 3.5 officers technically.
Thank you.
Tonight, we get to hear from you folks, and Sheriff Norris, thank you very much for answering those questions.
Thank you so much.
Tonight, we get to hear from you folks about this. We've had as Mr. Boyer noted, we have noticed some slight changes in state law on what the ballot language must say. And for that reason, we are not going to get into the ordinance tonight, which, as Council President Roeder pointed out to me earlier, that might be a good thing, because at this point, we get to hear from the citizens before we approve the ballot language. I would like to make mention of one thing before anyone comments. First of all, now, just one thing. This ballot measure will not raise your taxes by 32%. It will raise only the city of Hayden portion of your taxes by approximately 32%. Try to remember your last tax bill. There were about 10 taxing districts on that bill. This will not affect what you pay to any of those other taxing districts. It will only increase the city's small portion of that tax bill. With those thoughts in mind, let's proceed to public comment. I assume that all of you folks that would like to speak have filled out a card. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. I will raise a white card to you to let you know when you have 30 seconds left. When you get up to speak, I would appreciate if you would state your name and if you reside within the Hayden city limits. After the public comment, I'll close the comments and council will deliberate. Our first speaker tonight is Sue Edwards.
My name is Sue Edwards, and I live in the city of Hayden. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
First, I would like to thank the city council and the city staff and the task force members and Mayor Forcell for all your time and hard work. We really do appreciate it. And also Sheriff Norris and the deputies who put their lives on the line every day. And this is, of course, in regards to the proposed ballot for increase in the base budget to provide for more law enforcement. I believe the numbers are clear. We need to increase the number of deputies The national average is 1.6 deputies per 1,000. Hayden has 0.22 deputies per 1,000. Right now, there are 4 deputies assigned to Hayden. I was actually stunned when I first heard how few law enforcement we had for the city. Spirit Lake, a population of 2,300, has 7 officers. The task force recommends a minimum of deputies, two deputies per shift, and that gives us round-the-clock coverage, shorter response times, more safety for citizens and deputies, and also keeping the school resource officer program. Hayden spends about 6%, I believe, on law enforcement. Other cities in Kootenai County are spending from 20 to 40%. Regarding the Hayden Urban Renewal Agency, what funds they get if the levy passes benefits the city of Hayden and are used to improve the city. For example, the city has asked HURA to help fund intersection improvements to reduce traffic congestion. I think that we would all be grateful for less traffic congestion. Asking the citizens of Hayden to spend a little over $7 a month on an average $500,000 house, and I realize that's an estimate, to have 6 more deputies is a bargain. Please, let's make the citizens aware of the need for these deputies and let them vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Connie Wesson.
Hello, my name is Connie Wesson and I live in the city of Hayden. I've listened to the city council, I've listened to Sheriff Norris, and I've listened to the public. We need to put this on the ballot. I don't see any reason why we would not put it on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Doug Fredericks.
Not for law enforcement. I've done my bit.
Not for law enforcement, all right, sir. Good enough.
I think we all are.
Our next speaker is Joy Richards.
Good evening. My name is Joy Richards, and I am a resident of the city of Hayden. I want to thank the members of the task force, Sheriff Norris, and the 3 of you who voted to allow us to vote on financing additional deputies at the last meeting. The task force represented a cross-section of the community. They worked for months, studying the issue in depth. Comments by several of the task force members at the last meeting suggested that 2 city council members could not be persuaded no matter how convincing the facts nor how urgent the need. The task force proposal was unanimous, recommending 6 additional deputies. 6 is far below what Sheriff Norris concludes that we need to be safe. I applaud the sheriff for his persistence and dedication to improve safety. I also applaud him for continuing to challenge City Council President Roeder's interpretation of crime statistics. It's been increasingly clear that 2 deputies are needed to respond to calls in Hayden. Waiting for backup can lead to undesirable consequences, especially in domestic violence situations. For years, the city of Hayden has obtained law enforcement services without paying its fair share. How can this be allowed to continue? Even with the proposed increase to pay for 6 additional deputies, it's still a bargain compared to what other municipalities pay for law enforcement. The concern that Hayden's Urban Renewal Agency will benefit financially from an increase in the base is a distraction. HURA funds are reinvested in our community for capital projects, which are approved by the City Council. Brett Boyer suggested that perhaps HURA funds could be used for a satellite office for the Sheriff's Department. This levy is about increased safety for our citizens, our schools, and our deputies. If the cost is $17.82 per thousand of assessed value, a home valued at $500,000 after the homeowner's exemption will pay an additional $89.10 for the year, or about $7.42 a month. Isn't increased safety worth that? This is not a complex issue. This is not difficult to understand. The time has come to ask, do we need more deputies? And if so, are we willing to pay for them? Please let us make the decision with our votes. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is John Spencer.
Thank you. First of all, my name is John Spencer. I'm a resident here of Hayden. I was a member of the Citizens Task Force. First of all, I wish to thank the council members for at least moving in a positive direction to increase the base budget and to accommodate more law enforcement. I believe Sheriff Norris succinctly pointed out the fact that the city of Hayden needed to start paying their fair share. We've talked about the 3.5 deputies, but I rest assured that when something happens in Hayden, there are other communities that are coming to our support all the time. Our service level is good because Sheriff Norris is making sure it's good and pulling resources from other avenues. I believe our task force spokesperson, Ms. Nancy Jones, eloquently pointed out that we as a collective need to anticipate and prepare as Hayden grows. As the statistics will show, the city of Hayden is not immune to an increase in crime and drugs and other safety hazards. In closing, I would like to reiterate that the 6 additional deputies that we are trying to push forward is just a down payment. There is going to be a need on a continual basis to get it to where the point of the number of deputies that we need, not only as the population grows in Hayden, but just to catch up and be where we should be today. I want to thank you again for the council members for your work and the many hours that you and the city staff expends that typically goes unnoticed. So we appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. Russ McLean.
Russ McLean, I live in the county. We own property here. I was on the task force as well. And Ed and Roger were there, Mr. Boyer, and your clerk. I want to make it clear that nobody coached us in any way. They were there to provide the information we asked for. Okay, and it was all us. Everything was us. We compromised at 10. Some wanted more. I wanted less, but we went around the table. It was a very good group and very focused. So they're a good bunch, you know, and the URD was kind of a blind side in the newspaper. We could have addressed that. Not amused with that one. But, you know, we were diligent and we really looked under every stone. Every topic was addressed, everything. And we came with a compromise for 10. My opinion is that, you know, this is a border town. Everybody passes through. And there's massive growth on both sides, you know, and, you know, it has to be dealt with. You know, and it's not just with the sheriff, it's with the roads and everything else, you know. And that was our compromise, was 10. And I would appreciate you guys honoring our compromise. And maybe work out something with the URD. We had no idea. That was a blind side. And not too amused about it. But that's what I got to say. We really did. She questioned, you know, laterally moving up. Well, we talked about that. Read the minutes, they're there, you know. But we compromised at 10. And I think it's a fair and it's a proper way to move forward. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is John Young.
Good evening, I'm John Young, and for the record, I moved to Hayden, Idaho in 1975 and have been in my current residence in Hayden, Idaho since 2007 and been in and out for that whole time. I will start by addressing, I sat on the Citizens Committee, now both Citizens Committee back in 2019 and the current one. I also donate my time as the chairman of the Hayden Urban Renewal Agency. I don't remember exactly what was stated in the paper, but the fact of the matter is all properties within the Hayden Urban Renewal District pay the same taxes as everybody else does. Whatever those taxing entities are, what their levy rates are paid by those entities. So what happens is that those monies that go from the base value that was established, I believe in 2005 for the district, the difference between that and the current value, the levy rates for all these taxing districts times that value goes into the urban renewal district. And then, as was stated, those monies are reinvested in the city of Hayden. We just had a great meeting last month with the city council, the urban renewal board and the city council, had a great workshop talking about what we can do to invest this money in the city of Hayden. The improvements on Hayden Avenue that were just completed last year, that was paid for by HURA dollars. And we call it the Walmart money. So we're taking taxes from Walmart and we're improving streets and other spots in the city of Hayden. We're doing sewer projects, we're funding traffic studies, things like that to help with some of the problems in the city. So HURA is not the problem here. Every business in there and the majority of the taxpayers in the district are businesses. They're not homeowners. So they're paying the same taxes as anybody else is when, should this pass. So following up on Mayor's comment earlier, I looked at my property tax bill tonight. City of Hayden, out of my tax bill, I pay 11.86% to the city of Hayden. I pay 13.2% to Northern Lakes Fire District. Well, obviously, based on dollars and cents, we think Northern Lakes Fire District firefighting is more important than taking care of our streets and taking care of police. I don't think so. I think it's time that we as taxpayers go ahead and encourage our city council to make the right move. The committee recommended 6 deputies, a total of 10. Joy very clearly went through all the numbers. I'm not going to repeat them again. It will improve the safety in our district. I'll make it quick. Where the question was brought up about the $300,000, that's one-time money. That's going to get us started. These new tax dollars don't come in until 2024 if the citizens approve it. So it gives us a start to get going in the right direction. Lastly, we just need to do this for safety. In my neighborhood, and I live in a nice neighborhood, a gentleman across the street had a moment. Can I finish this 30 seconds?
No, sir,
I have my HURA hat on first.
No, sir, I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
okay.
your time is up. Thank you, Mr. Young.
Mayor,
Yes.
are we allowed to ask questions of the speakers?
So questions of the speaker's choice whether or not they want to answer. The question can be asked.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question. And I know that this HURA stuff can be really confusing, but I want to make it simplified. And John, you're going to help me because you've been on HURA for how many years?
Since 2010.
And so you're probably one of the more senior members.
Steve Meyer is the most senior member, yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, and Council President Roeder, I'll be happy to entertain this information later, but at this point, I want to stay on the point of the public comment.
Well, this is.
Well, sir, we can discuss this at a future time or perhaps at the end, but I want to stay on the point here, and I appreciate you being willing to answer that, Mr. Young, but if you could sit down, we'll go with the next speaker right now. Thank you very much.
So, Mayor, if I can ask during the deliberations, can I ask the questions then?
During deliberations, yes, sir, you can.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is J.J. Jacobson.
Good evening. I'm JJ and I do live in the city of Hayden. One of the things that's really unique about everybody here and everybody who's come in the last several meetings is that everybody has their own point of either contention or positive to talk about. And that's really refreshing to hear such well-rounded information. And that's the way the task force was. We talked about negatives, we talked about positives, we talked about a person's individual issues versus the community issues. We talked about every single thing that we could possibly talk about, I think. And we came up with what our recommendation was to the city council. As several people have mentioned, 6 additional deputies was only the beginning. I mean, a lot of us wanted more, but we all chose to agree to 6. And 6 is not going to last forever. Our community, our state, our county, our state, it's going to grow, but just because that's the way life is, it's going to grow. So we're going to need more law enforcement as time goes on. So don't think that these 6 officers are going to last us, or the deputies are going to last us for the rest of our lives, because it's not. This is going to be an issue again. I just wanted to address 2 arguments that I've heard. Mayor addressed the 32%. Thank you very much for being specific about that. The other one is that there were 3 women who had a little discussion on a Facebook post. And it turns out that only 2 of them, that 2 of them did not even live in the city of Hayden and were against the Hayden levy. Anyway. Their arguments were that the city of Hayden has been irresponsible in growth over the last several years. And because it's the city's problem, it shouldn't become the voters' problem and taxpayers' problem to rectify law enforcement. It's 2 separate issues. The city of Hayden has previously agreed to certain growth. We have to live with that right this minute. We're living with it right now. And law enforcement's an entirely different situation. Even if the city of Hayden were to stop all growth today, that's not going to stop the growth in all of our neighboring cities. It's not going to deter anybody from moving into Kootenai County. One more minute.
3 more seconds, 30 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry. And then that goes by so fast. And those people are going to come into Hayden from there. As one of these women said, they're going to pass through. So they're going to bring additional crime to our town, even if the city stopped all growth. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Nancy Jones.
First of all, council, like so many others, let me thank you for forming the task force, for at least asking the question. Other municipalities have seen not do that. This is the perfect time to do this because of the $300,000. It's one-time money. It will get us through next year. It will get the first 3 officers hired and ready to hit the ground running. So by the time you are collecting these taxes, we're going to have that in place. It would be a continuation of what you have already identified as a need by saying you would put the $300,000 forward this coming year. You identified yourselves the importance of this issue. I heard the sheriff call this a critical need. I heard the last sheriff call this a critical need. I've been on 2 task forces now that have stood here and told council the only way to pay for this is a levy. We need this. It is time. It is past time. Neighborhood watch. We do neighborhood watch. We do. There are other steps that have been taken. The contract has been increased, but let's not forget the contract you already have isn't even covering what you have now. So you're already behind on that. So no, we do need to do this. The only way you could do this, as Councilman White mentioned, isn't there a way to look at the budget, do it a little at a time? You would have to put this levy increase on your ballot every year. Please don't turn the city of Hayden into the school district where year after year after year, we're asking for levy increases. It would be the only other way to do this. We're asking for one large increase. We identify that. But like John said, I've paid $1,100 to the city of Hayden over the last decade. That's it. Yes, I moved here in 2002. I've owned my home in here. You're asking me to pay about $7.42 more a month. That's it. That's all we're talking about here. And I heard Mr. Frederick say, I don't like to pay taxes, but that's up to us in this point, is to be able to say what we would pay our taxes on. You know, a lot of us would be willing to do this. Neighborhood Watch and URDs, we've heard the URD money is still our money. It would come back to us. Growth is a distraction. The fact is, this is about our vote. My vote, Russ's vote, JJ's vote, and Doug's. Please work with us by letting us vote. I will finish with words from Sandy White, said to this council in November of 2020, a quote that she gave to previous council. I believe you need to maintain liberty and trust the citizens to make their own informed decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Lonnie Harrington.
Lonnie Harrington. I live in Hayden. I have sat down and made up a few notes, but it would just be covering everything else that's been already said. However, never pass up an opportunity to stand before a microphone. However, I did bring one thing that the rest of you haven't. And this is the article from our paper. Remember that one? And then we got over here on the side, you're going to be charged 33% increase in taxes. That is false. We're going to be charged about $90 for a year for taxes for the deputies. And we're going to add another $10, $11 for the urban renewal, which is required by the state. So we'll be out $100 max, somewhere in that neighborhood. This red herring of 32% or 33% increase in taxes is exactly what it is. It's a red herring. We'll catch everybody who doesn't read and understand what a levy does. A levy is a dollar amount. And it's not a percentage, it's a dollar. And this is what we have to force to the people. We're not raising taxes 32% or 33%. We are raising $600,000 approximately to give us our deputies. When I talk to my Friday morning breakfast club, there's 5 of us anyway, they were appalled when I told them, first of all, we do not have 24/7 coverage here from the police department, from the sheriff. What do you mean we don't? No, we don't. We only have 3 days a week. We do not even have coverage on a swing shift, let alone any other kind of shift. So now what do? You have an accident, you have a problem at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we get to call. They will call Worley, Harrison, up here north, they'll call them from over Kellogg. They'll try to get them from wherever to come in here. So we need to pass the levy. You as council members need to put the full amount in. And by the way, this is my third go around on this stuff. And I'm hoping third time's a charm.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I asked him a question because he quoted me.
No, sir. However, sir, to be fair, I believe if you read that article carefully, Councilmember Roeder did say that the Hayden taxes would increase 32%.
To the city.
32% would increase?
To the city.
That's how much you're going to collect more.
Just to be.
That's a true statement.
Just to be clear. Our next speaker is Tanner Cox.
Before we get started, I'm here representing myself, not who I work for.
I'm representing my family, and my residency is a Hayden citizen. And I, yes, do live in the city of Hayden. So I'm Tanner Cox. I was born in California. That was my choice, but I moved up here when I was less than 2 years old. So I've been in Hayden since I was 2 years old. I'm now going on 29. So I've been here a long time. I want to start off by thanking Councilmember DePriest, Mayor Forcell, and Councilmember Satterfield, since he's not here. Thank you guys for supporting us. I appreciate that, because we wouldn't be to this point if it wasn't for you three. I also want to thank the city clerk, and the city administrator, and the rest of the city staff for being supportive of us all the way through, because it's a lot of work, and we couldn't do it without you guys. So to get started, what does the blue line mean? You see it on a million different cars. They're all over the place. You see people with Blue Lives Matter stickers and support local law enforcement. But that means nothing if you're not willing to support us where we need it. To fly the flag, but to not back it and put your money where your mouth is, doesn't help me, doesn't help the officers, doesn't help their families. And I'm sorry if I get emotional, but I have an investment in this. So we're all conservative in North Idaho, where most of us are. But if you are too conservative, you round that loop and you're not conservative anymore. At that point, you're more picky about taxes than getting the community the help that they need. With that, if you don't fund the police, that's defunding the police. When you vote no to put the levy to these people, you're defunding us and the police departments. That's you guys. That's just like Minnesota, just like Seattle, just like these big cities. You guys are defunding the police. So take your stickers off your car because you're not helping. With that, I'm going to tell you a quick term that's used in law enforcement and in the court system. It's called deliberate indifference. The definition from Black's Dictionary of deliberate indifference is being plainly placed on notice of danger and choosing to ignore the danger, notwithstanding the notice. What that means is if a law enforcement officer goes into a situation, for instance, the school shooting down in Texas, and they know that there's a danger and they refuse to act, they can spend life in prison. They lose their houses. They lose their families. You guys know there's a problem. It's already been said. The stats have been said. Are you being deliberately indifferent to this act? It doesn't affect you. You're not going to lose your house. But the officers that are out there on the street, by not funding them, I'd like you guys to come to their families, their husbands, their wives, their kids when they get hurt or killed. Because I'm the one that wants to support that and prevent that, okay? But at some point, it's going to happen. Statistically, it's going to happen. The sheriff's office has never lost an officer in the line of duty. However, it's coming, unfortunately. And we, as the citizens of Hayden, can fix that and have a chance to make a difference. My final line, because I know it's getting close. As a citizen, I'd rather pay for what the sheriff needs and see 1 million Hayden patrol cars than to see a line of 200 cars with a casket with a dead cop in there. That's something that we as citizens would have to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would wish to speak? Thank you. Our public comment period is closed. Wonder if council might have any comments about the deliberations tonight, recognizing that we are not going to be discussing the ordinance itself. Councilmember.
Thank you.
Sorry, before you start, are you okay if I keep the screen down? So you can see
Yes,
Robert?
yes, thank you. We can get back to Councilmember Satterfield. Sure.
You know, to me, it's very simple. Let the people who are going to be obligated to pay for this, let them decide if they want to pay it or not. I know that we represent the people, but this is too important of an issue. Having lived here 61 years, I go back to, I don't even remember when, but we had one policeman. He had a red light and he drove a 1965 Chevrolet pickup. Now, from that time, we now have a population of 16,000 plus. We've only increased the deputies by four, actually 3 because I was counting him. So, you know, let the people decide. One of the gentlemen spoke of us being a border town. you know, one of the incidences that wasn't really publicized was 3 people from Spokane hit the manager of a local grocery store over the head with a wine bottle, knocking him out. So we're affected by crime from everywhere because we are a border town. But again, I just say, please, let's let the people decide. You know, and I'm part of the people. This tax increase would affect me. So I just think again, let the people decide whether they want to be taxed or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Satterfield. Councilmember DePriest.
Yeah, again, if I understood it correctly, we're going to have a special meeting next Tuesday to discuss, I guess, some language.
Some language changes on the ballot.
Okay. But again, I'm going to beat the dead horse over and over and over again and ask the question to council and to the audience. How many of you have gone on even one ride along with the sheriff? With any law enforcement? Well, obviously, thank you. But anybody who isn't law, nobody. Okay. What really solidified this and has solidified this issue for me is when I've gone on those ride-alongs. And I will use the one situation, but this situation has presented itself multiple times in these ride-alongs. The deputy gets a call. The domestic is the one that most people can relate to, but there have been several others where they've had to go deal with a pedophile who's not cooperating. They've had to deal with criminal activity. They've had to deal with issues where I can see on the computer screen in the car, they know the individual, and they pull up his rap sheet, whatever you want to call it. Felon in possession, felon in possession, felon in possession, you name it. This is a dangerous dude, okay? And I will ask any of you in here, would you want to roll up to that person's door at any time of day, let alone 11 o'clock at night, without backup? Okay, I wouldn't. So what has happened? There have been multiple instances where we have had these calls and sat for 10, 15, 20 minutes waiting for backup to come. What can be happening within those homes, buildings, what have you, while deputies, law enforcement are sitting outside waiting because you don't know what's behind that door. My whole thing is with this, and the numbers as I understand them will allow, and I believe we need and have to have 2 deputies in the city of Hayden at all times so that the response time for anything, let alone a potential violent and dangerous situation, so that those deputies can most likely get there within, is there a service standard time for law enforcement expectation? 5 minutes maybe, something like that? But anyway, let me tell you, if somebody's breaking into my house, I want those guys there now. I don't want them to have to come and sit and wait until they can get back up or whatever might be happening. And a minimum of 2 on duty at all times, I think is absolute necessity for the safety of the deputies as well as the people. And that's the bottom line for me. Okay, again, as a taxpayer, whether it's $89 or $100 a year, okay, it's well worth it, okay, to improve the situation for everybody within the city. So all the other things aside, okay, it's those simple facts, the safety of myself and my family and everybody in the city, and especially those guys who risk their lives 24 hours a day. That's all I need to make this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DePriest. Councilmember White, do you have any?
Yes, I would just like to say that we all agree that there needs to be more law enforcement, and we all agree that we have a problem in Hayden, and we all agree that we value our law enforcement. I am not arguing that at all. I would like a clarification onto why this is really being discussed tonight. Didn't we approve this ballot to go, didn't we approve this to go on the ballot? I mean, I feel like people are asking us to vote for it when it already was passed.
Tonight, we will not be voting tonight on placing it on the ballot because we need to revise the language somewhat. And tonight, our purpose of engaging the public here is to hear their side of the story. And as you and other council members requested last meeting, that we would like to hear public comment.
Right, we'd like to hear public comment, but correct me if I'm wrong, it passed 3-2 last week. So I have a feeling that the public is trying to get us to change our mind when they have the levy on the ballot.
Actually, we are.
Mayor, I can clarify this
Yes, ma'am.
for
Thank you. Go
Councilmember
ahead.
White. Last week you voted on the number of deputies that would be, and the dollar amount that was associated with increasing the number of deputies. That was the number that you voted on last week to be placed on the ballot. And we are not considering the actual ballot language, and the council has not approved the ordinance that has to be published if the council does decide to approve the ballot language and then put this on the ballot. So there's still a couple of steps left in there.
Okay. Well, this just leans to my point that I believe the levy task force had many weeks of deliberation and had many weeks of thinking about it and looking at statistics. And Councilman DePriest and Councilman Satterfield were on that task force and privy to all that information. Now, as a council person, this information coming to me suddenly, I do feel like I needed time to think about it and look at the statistics and look at all the options. I said no to the first option that came to us. And what I said no to was badly worded language and a badly, we didn't even have something to vote on the first time. The vote we were voting on kept changed from, oh, let's vote for the levy. Oh, let's vote for the wording. Oh, it might not get on the ballot on time. We might have to have a public hearing. And that's what I voted no to, was something badly worded and ill phrased. And now we're coming to another thing where last week, our good Mayor Purcell, he thought that the whole levy had passed to go on the ballot at that point. Now this time, again, we're all confused. We thought that was the ballot, that was the vote. This is not clear. This is not succinct. This is all sounding rushed, and I am not happy with this. I need to make a decision for my constituents that I know how much this is going to cost them fiscally. I do not have clarity on that. I need to know how long this is going to go. This is going to raise their taxes almost $600,000 every year for how long, and then we're going to need more. I want a plan. I want a contract. I want to know what's happening, and I want more clarity before I say yes. But I am in 100% agreement with everyone here that yes, we need more law enforcement. Deputy Cox, I value you. I value your life, and I am so happy that you are here and that you are here to protect us. I know you're not just working. This is your life, and this is your dedication. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so happy for you to be with us. But I represent the city of Hayden, and I must do so with clarity and with information and without being rushed, without being pressured, and without being, I just want to do this in proper order. Now, we are 4 council members. We each have a different voice. We don't have to be in 100% agreement on things. But I do need more information as to the fiscal impact that this will have. But do not take me wrong. I do value our law enforcement. I do see a need. And I wish we had had this information on June 1st as promised, because in the beginning of June, we started looking at the budget, and we did not have this information, and we were not able to look at the budget in a more subjective way to where we could make a more objective way to make some changes and appropriate a little bit. Okay? That's what I have to say right now. But I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. Thank you for comments. And yes, I'm taking it all to heart. I want what's best for Hayden. I love Hayden. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm serving. And I really do want what's best for Hayden. And so just thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman White. Council President Roder, before we get started on this subject, last week we completely confused the audience on the subject of HURA. And I would appreciate everyone and the responses coming to their point quickly, because I suspect that even if we have another discussion about HURA, everyone's going to end up just as confused. So if all could make their points quickly, I would appreciate that.
And I thank you. I think that's what I want to do, is I think I can bring a pretty succinct clarity to 2 points that I made at last meeting. And I know Brett went into a long discussion that frankly confused me. I got lost with that. But we have probably, between John and I, and John's probably the more expert to me on urban renewal, so that's why I'd like him to address the address. But let me make a couple comments before that we do that, John. Number one, I support our law enforcement. I want to make it clear. It's not a no. It's that I believe that 3 is the number that we should have for an increase. And the reason why is that the last 2 levies failed. You ask for too much and people are going to say no. If you ask for a compromise, you might get it. In my opinion, and this is Matt Roder's opinion, and I helped get Judge Mitchell elected and Barry McHugh, our prosecuting attorney. I've worked on numerous campaigns. I know most of our legislators. The point I want to make is that I believe I have my finger on the political pulse of Hayden and our conservative district that our Hayden is located in. The KCRCC, they're a very conservative group of folks, and they have a voice, and I am too a conservative, because I know that the sheriff asked me that question. But I want to make it clear, I'm not against law enforcement. I just believe that if we go for 6, it will fail. If we go for 3, we get something. I would rather get something than nothing. And I want to make that a clear point, is that that's my political view of this. And with years of experience and being involved with campaigns, and I want to help. Even I see our chief, Pat Riley's back there. His quote in the paper said, "This is not the time to pass a levy." It isn't. It's a very difficult time. So I'm trying to be realistic with what we can do. I don't believe we can get 6. We may be able to get 3. I'd like to see at least we get 3. That's how much we budgeted basically for next year, is $300,000. That could continue on forever. Also, I'd like to address that I too felt rushed about the information coming from the task force. The reason why Sandy and I could not sit in on the task force is when you have 3 members of the council or more, you have a quorum. You can't do that. So we weren't privy to that, and the information, the minutes from those meetings, I just got last week. So I did ask questions, and there are some more questions I have. So with that, I would like to ask John if you come up and if we could go through, and I'll make this quick, Mayor, and I'll give, hand this out to our legal counsel and Brett. I think I only have one more. You guys are gonna have to share.
Thank you.
All right.
Gentlemen, I just want to give you fair warning that I'd like to keep this to the point.
Sure. John, I've handed you a tax bill. You mentioned your tax bill at your house. This is the easiest way to make my point is to actually look at a tax bill.
This is the tax bill to one of my properties, my wife's restaurant right down the street, FYI.
And that's why I did this, because I figured you'd be familiar with this. Is this property located in the urban renewal district?
It is located in the urban renewal district, yes.
Okay, and if we look at the tax bill, can you tell me in 2021 how much the city of Hayden received in property taxes? And this is where the money would go to support an increase in the levy for more deputies. How much did the city collect from that property?
So Matt, you have to look at the second page, which shows the total net tax of $3,815.43. And that goes to all the different taxing districts that are in.
That's not my
included in the
question.
tax bill.
My question is, how much did the city of Hayden?
City received $18.68.
Okay, and then if you look where the other yellow areas, how much did the Hayden Urban Renewal District receive?
That's $2,828.13. And can I expound on that, please, as the chairman of the Urban Renewal Agency? This is why urban renewal works. If you look over, you guys don't have this, over on the center, on the left center of the page, it says, what is the taxable value? Well, it says the taxable value on that lot, it was a lot when the Urban Renewal District was formed, was $21,685. So that's 2005. So in 2005, when that was frozen, that lot was worth about $22,000.
This is going to divert from
Well, I know how much of a check that my wife and I wrote to build that restaurant, how much money we borrowed to build that restaurant and buy that property, and it was a significant amount. And what has happened is now the valuation is up here, and that increment, the difference, the levy rate for all the different entities goes against that increment, and those dollars go into the Urban Renewal District funds. There was a statement earlier tonight about that the Urban Renewal Agency gets money over and above, that the people would pay taxes over and above to the Urban Renewal District, over and above what this increase is. That's untrue. Everybody pays the same taxes.
I need to have you answer Mr. Roder's
Yeah, I'm
question.
sorry, I want to be real succinct on this. So the assessed value on your property, according to the tax bill, is $2,100 or
That was in
23,000.
That's the basis for the Urban Renewal
Right.
District.
Can you tell me then what's the taxable value of the whole property?
Currently?
Not have to answer that if he doesn't want
It's not on here.
It's public record.
Okay.
Yeah, it's public record. It's zero.
I just want you to know you have a choice.
I think with the 2022 valuations, it's about $980,000.
But it's not on the tax bill. So my first point is it's not transparent. The tax bill from the county does not say your assessed value. Now, why that's important is because this is a disproportional tax. The urban renewal properties will pay very little, in this case, a few bucks.
That's not true.
Well,
you're interpreting that wrong.
Okay, then tell me how out of that $18 that you paid last year, how much will that increase if this levy's passed?
Excuse me, Matt, I cut you off. You were going to say the properties in the Urban Renewal District will pay less money to
pay for the levy increase.
That's correct.
That's correct.
That's the way Idaho state law said.
So it's not evenly applied to properties within the urban renewal district and outside.
That is true. That's the way Idaho.
That's my point is how do you have a disproportional discriminatory tax? And in my opinion, that is one of the reasons I voted against this. Number two, I want to make it clear on the ballot language. It should have the number up there that was, John, I'm done with this. So I don't need, we're done with this, but I want to make the last point.
I would like to make one point.
Well,
that is the way, that is per Idaho state code, the way that.
Right, but it's disproportional. Thank you. So I want to make the last point. The ballot language has to be totally transparent. I will not support a tax, a permanent tax, in this case, a 33% increase that the city of Hayden will collect that's not totally disclosed in a ballot. That language should include 590 whatever thousand. Brett gave me an email and said the urban renewal will get about 42,000. So the ballot language, and this is not confusing, it should be A, this amount, 597,000 plus 42,000 is the total amount of tax that will be collected if this is passed. By not including the HERA amount, it's not transparent, it's not disclosing, and I will never support a tax that is not fully disclosed. Now, again, I support increasing to 3 deputies, but I also want total transparency when we're talking about increasing the taxes that Hayden collects by 33%. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Roden. Council?
I do want to advise the council members and Councilmember Roeder on that specific issue of including the HERA provisions on the ballot language. Idaho law does not allow us to do that, and that's per Idaho Code 34914. It's very specific that in this type of situation with what the city is trying to, or excuse me, what the proposed ballot language is and for the ballot measure, that there's very specific language that can be included on the ballot, and the language with respect to other matters, which would include information about what monies may or may not go to HERA, cannot be included on the ballot.
So let me ask you this question. By excluding the amount that HERA would receive, is the city being transparent?
Well, the Idaho legislature.
I'm not talking about the law.
Practical, Mr. Roeder, we have,
Just a practical question.
we have to follow the law when we have ballots.
No,
Sorry.
I'm just asking a question about transparency.
The statute was adopted in July of 2021. So this is the new statute. So
This is partly
this is
why.
partly why
we
the
wanna
language was pulled
Move the,
today.
And I'm just asking, is it transparent that we exclude it? That's my question.
Well, you need to review the statute because.
Okay, that's all I'm looking for.
What needs to be on the ordinance.
If I may, if the Idaho legislature has gone to the means to pass this new provision of the Idaho Code, and it is specifically in the statute that this language that has to be included on ballots and may not be included on ballots is to be transparent. The city's compliance with Idaho law would mean that it is transparent.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, thanks. Councilmember White.
Just one quick question of Brett. I was in your office with you yesterday and you said something about there's one way to get increased tax money where the some of the taxes don't go to HERA. And you said there was one where it does go to HERA. Could you explain to me the difference between those two?
in this case, it probably would work, in my understanding. So I called the Alan Dornfest, who's with the state. If it's a temporary override, say it's for 2 years, and a lot of times they say you have a capital item and it's for 2 years, then it specifically mentions that the increase in the levy rate does not carry over to HERA for that period of time. But if it's a permanent levy override, it does. So the levy, again, HERA does not get to set their levy rates. All the districts' levy rates from whatever action they've taken to get to that basically slide over to this separate entity, and those levy rates are then applied. And so, and this is why it gets complicated. We spent, I don't know, 20 minutes in the last meeting trying to do it, and it's not easily explained. And so I think what we tried to do in the previous attempts was to try to address transparency by, we had a town hall meeting, and we let the folks there know urban renewal will receive approximately this amount. On the information sheet that we sent out in that first attempt, it had a box that mentioned that urban renewal would receive about $100,000. And then if somebody had a question on it and wanted to really know more about it, they could come in and sit down and go through it. And I think we had a couple people that didn't understand it and came in.
So your response to Councilmember White is that if it's a short term, it can be done, but if it's long term, it cannot.
If it's permanent, then that levy rate does carry over to urban renewal.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember
Thank you.
DePriest, and I appreciate you keep your.
I'm going to try and make it very, very quick here, but last week there was an assertion by Council President Roeder that this was an unconstitutional discriminatory tax, and I've had questions about that. Have you had an opportunity to research that and comment on it?
I have had some opportunity. I haven't been able to locate any sort of specific case law, but the understanding of any urban renewal district is that the dollars that go to the urban renewal district are from the revenue allocation area. So if you are not within the revenue allocation area, you do not pay into the urban renewal district.
So it sounds like you can't really give us a definitive answer regarding, is this unconstitutional or what was the word? Discriminatory.
I would say that there's a distinction, but discriminatory is a legal term of art, and I can't give you a legal opinion as to whether or not it is discriminatory based on what I have researched and what I have found and what I have not found. I don't think that in the manner that the city is able to put this request for additional funds on the ballot. This is something that just goes with urban renewal districts. It goes with the taxing districts, that this is how monies are applied to finance those entities.
Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, thank all of you for commenting tonight on this particular issue. We will take this up again at a special meeting, council meeting next Tuesday evening, afternoon, 5 o'clock. And
Mayor?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Satterfield, I forgot you were there. Please go ahead. I see you there on the screen. My apologies.
Thank you. You know, I've been in that position many times. People forget I'm here, but that's okay. Just a couple of things I'd like to clarify. One is the city of Rathdrum, who has less population than we do, spends over $5 million a year for law enforcement. What we're getting, or what we would get, is if the levy passes, is one hell of a deal. And I'm all for making good deals. The other thing is it's been talked about that Councilmember White said we're all confused. I would appreciate it if she would only speak for herself. I'm not confused at all. I understand exactly what happens with this levy if it passes. I'm 100% sure of what the ballot language should be. We had a group of people, broad range of people, that have law enforcement experience, business experience, just everyday Joes. Why do we know more than they do? This is what they recommended. This is a representation, a broader representation than city council on what they think we need. It's simple. We are confused. Let's just put it on the ballot. If the citizens say no, they're happy with it. And if they say yes, they're happy with it. But let them decide what the safety committee recommended. And lastly, to Council President Roeder, in regards to her, Matt, I understand transparency. I understand it very well because I've worked for the government many years. Transparency is good, but let's not compromise safety because the Attorney General and others says we can't mention her on the ballot. Let's move forward with this and not compromise safety over it. Because I don't know about you, but if I need a cop, I want the cop there quickly. And I think this is an opportunity. So anyway, didn't mean to repeat myself, but thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Satterfield. And for those of you that commented tonight, thank you very much. We're moving on to other business. We have a public hearing tonight. The first item, 3A, is for the fiscal year 2023 budget appropriations. We got a staff member who is...
Yeah, I can go through, I've got a couple slides. I'm just wondering, since we've been here almost 2 hours.
Would you like to have a 5-minute break? Sure. Stand up, stretch your legs for 5 minutes. Council meeting is being reconvened. The next action item that we have on our schedule tonight is the fiscal year 2023 budget appropriation. Brett Boyer.
Mayor and council, thank you.
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
first I need to open this hearing, and the procedures of the hearing are that the staff will present it, the council will ask staff questions, the public will have an opportunity to comment, the council will have an opportunity to ask public questions, the hearing will be closed, and the council will deliberate. Go ahead, Mr. Boyer. Hearing is now open.
Okay, I just have a couple slides I'll go through, and then if we have any questions or deliberation, I can stay up here after the questions from folks in the hearing, or comments from folks in the public hearing. The process that we've gone through this year as far as our putting the budget together, again, we started in April, meeting with department heads. We've had a strategic planning session with the council. We received direction from the council on direction the budget should go. We had draft budgets due from staff, meetings with department heads. We had a council budget work session on June 30th and then one on the 12th. Then we formulated and put together the final draft budget, which was approved on July 26th. And then we had notice twice in the newspaper, which was done. And then today is hopefully the last part of this process to approve our budget. We just one page with some highlights since we've gone through some of this. We on the property tax numbers on the previous time prior to July 26th, we did have to estimate because we did not receive the final numbers from the county. You know, I think you saw in the paper, we did receive those. Our estimates were high, and so the numbers you see actually came down a little bit on that. It included the medical increase. We had a 5% COLA compared with the 8 to 9% cost of living that we've seen over the last year. We've seen increase in fuel costs, so we added some in there. Hopefully fuel costs will come down this next year. Things are trending that direction. And I mentioned before, we hadn't added any folks. We moved one seasonal, we would like to move one seasonal parks maintenance worker into full-time, and so we used the amount that was in the seasonal line item to help offset the cost for this full-time employee, and then an engineering tech position to help out with upstairs with Public Works, who that's our very busy area in reviewing, looking at infrastructure, looking at growth and things like that. And so adding those two positions are in the budget. We had in there the ARPA money. We haven't spent any of it, but we did allocate it in the budget and in the capital improvement plan, according to what you see here, approximately $860,000 for basically in the general fund for roads. And we left some in there, $100,000 in there for a project that the council may come up with this year to do. And then we had put in 2.4 for sewer. Again, originally when the ARPA money came out, there were only three main areas you could use it, and sewer was one of them. And so we started down that path and have been working on 6 lift station project and to utilize some of those funds to help get that project done. The increase that we saw this year, an estimated amount for the from the transportation dollars that we receive, almost all of that increase basically went into the line item for road projects, approximately 100,000 increase. And so that would just allow Public Works next year to do more on our chip seals. Snow plowing, we increased some just based on the cost that we had been seeing. We included a second payment for the Lakes Highway District property. There's $400,000 in there for the second part to purchase the property from the agreement with them. on the property on Ramsey Avenue. And so the plan is in 3 years that we would move our public works and our parks together on that property. It's leased property, but we would own the buildings. We had in there a request to purchase a water truck, and then also we're out of compliance with ADA responsibilities to get upstairs, and so we have money in there to do a slight remodel and to add an elevator to get upstairs. It included, and we approved this in our previous council meeting, to increase the sewer O&M amount based on what FCS had recommended. And then we had in there the increase to the sheriff of $300,000. And then I won't go through all the capital improvement plan items, but we approved various projects related to capital improvement. This is a little bit hard to see up there with things there, but this gives you an idea. These are our revenues where things for, again, this is just general fund. This is not sewer related, but it gives you an idea of what we're receiving to operate the city from. And so the highest one actually is sales tax, but it's very close to property tax, 1.9 million, 1.8 million. We receive franchise fees, development fees, or like building fees as they come in, 677,000. You can see what we receive in state highway distribution dollars. Recreation and community events, those are fees that are charged to folks that participate in our programs, helps offset costs to those programs. State liquor distribution is another significant one at 8%. And then the county highway distribution amount is at 3%. So that gives you an idea of the revenues that are projected in this budget and where they're coming from. Gosh, my pie chart's a little big here. So expenditures. You can see here, our largest one in most cities, and I think somebody made the comment, public safety or police services is in most cities is the largest part of their general fund. And very close usually is public works, streets and parks. And so we've got 2.6 million. That's our largest one. General administration, 18%. Community development, which is upstairs, is planning, inspections. And then now we have on there the sheriff, we're up to 10% if this passes with the additional 300,000, and then the recreation. So that gives you a rough idea. Again, the general fund, not the sewer or our minor general fund items. This was just, I just threw that out here as far as property tax to let people understand. Again, this was an estimate that I had put together. You can see that the city of Hayden, even with our population size, based on our levy rate, we're kind of behind most of the other major cities in the area as far as what we receive in property tax. And so in this budget, if we take that 3% that we're allowed to take, it's just a little over $50,000 is what that 3% represents. And then we're allowed to take new construction, which I think this year is about 38,000. So you can see the significant difference when you compare property. So anyways, with that, I wanted to give a quick overview of the budget. We've gone in more detail previously. And so tonight there's an ordinance, it's an appropriation ordinance, it's in your packet. So the action item that we're seeking is to approve the budget and the appropriations ordinance. So do you want to take any questions now, or do you want to take public comments and then come back?
Let's see if does council have any questions of Brett?
Just one if I may.
Council President Roeder.
What about the new construction? I see the 3% was just a little over 50,000. What was our new construction?
Was it 38? I was remembering from the last time we did, it was about 38,000.
Is that the reduced amount that we,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, it's a slight reduction based on the new state law.
Is that 10% reduction based on Idaho legislature that,
Yeah.
okay.
New construction is actually 26.
So it dropped.
26,000?
Because that was from the previous, when we got the numbers from the county, it did drop. So 26,000 plus the 52 really is what our increase on property tax, what it can be. And so we've had a good economy, and so sales tax and liquor and road dollars have increased. But again, those we do not control, and if the economy goes down, those go down.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of staff? Yes,
Yes.
Councilmember White.
Thank you. Brett, could you go back to that first pie chart you had of the general fund revenue?
The revenues?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that one. Okay, I'm just looking for the law enforcement pie.
Well, that would be expenditures.
Where does it come in? Yeah, I
does it
see
come
we're
in?
spending 10, but I was wondering on the other one,
Oh.
for the general fund revenue, where does, in which section is all the,
It just comes out, so it's not listed as a specific revenue for public safety. It just, these revenues are, we're receiving property tax dollars or sales tax. We're receiving those and they formulate the general fund, and out of the general fund, we have that contract and spend the dollars on.
okay. So when the levy passes, will there be a pie specifically for the levy money, the 600,000 for the sheriff?
Again, on the expenditures, and we talked about this, about just having,
She's talking about revenues, though.
on revenues as they come in, I think,
It will come in as property tax. We can definitely break it out into its own line item.
so it would show.
So
I guess you
property
could pull it off
taxes-
and show 597,000 coming in as revenue as just a separate property tax.
Yep.
We don't
Okay.
have that now, but
Okay, so over in the property tax section there, that 1,858,000, it would be, maybe another slice of the pie would be law enforcement. Okay.
you could do it that way or,
And
yeah,
then,
that's just however you want to look at it.
okay, thank you. That helps to know that.
Does council have any more questions? Thank you, Brett. At this point, I'd like to give the public an opportunity to comment. We have not received any comment cards, but does the public have any comments that they would like to make? Seeing none, I'm closing this hearing, and we have an opportunity for council to deliberate. Council members have any discussion, including Councilmember Satterfield on the phone there? Are there any comments or questions about the 2023 budget appropriations?
Thank you, Mayor. I think the only thing that well, it's not the only thing, but we've all been affected by unprecedented costs. Inflation is killing all of us. But, that affects government too. So it isn't just the citizenry, government, the prices of fuel, medical, all of that goes up as well. As many of you know, I ran the solid waste department for 28 years. Well, I didn't run it for the full 28 years, but I was involved in it, helped start the department. There were times our budgets were $10 to $30 million, and that was for one department alone, not an entire city. The only thing that I have a little bit of heartburn with this budget is Jobs Plus. And I'm not bringing it up. I'm not going to use it as anything to vote no on, but I just kind of want to put them on notice that I think they could do more for the city of Hayden. So thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir. If there are no other comments, Councilmember White, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to comment that again, I think that, I just want to make it clear that I am committed to helping the sheriff, and he really does need more money. My question is, why is this all of a sudden crisis? We needed to be looking at this over long term, and I think we also need to look forward and have a plan how we can help the sheriff. I'm not sure it's a tax problem as much as it is a priority problem. And when the sheriff came and spoke to us back on July 26th, he told us that the additional $300,000 that he needed on top of the $400,000 was acceptable for this year, but short by $200,000. So that was news to me. I was hearing that for the first time. And I've come to the conclusion that this council and the council before me were not really digging deep into the budget carefully to supply the needs of the sheriff. So in 2018, 2019, Hayden put a levy, but those didn't pass. And in between those levies, I really don't see a lot of improvement on the taking care of the sheriff. So this time we have a one-time amount of money going to the sheriff that's going to help. But I would like to even just take a small step, and I mentioned this at a previous meeting. Let's take a small step and take part of the Brett, could you go back to the one that talks about the tax, property taxes, the 3%, what that looks like? That one there. So we have $52,811 coming in this 3% property taxes. And what would 1% of that be? Brett, do you remember?
Let's see, I put a couple slides together. If we did go to 2%, this was the difference with the new rate. I don't know if that was the slide, but so if you went, it's about a reduction of close to 18,000 of 17,000 something. And so I did the difference there. It would reduce on a home that's valued at 500,000 from $8 annually to $550, or it would be a change of $250 or a savings of 21 cents per month for a household that was 500,000.
Okay.
Is that what you were?
No, I was asking what would the 1% increase be? So
what would just a 1% increase be?
Yeah, the numbers keep changing, so I couldn't calculate this at home.
17,775.
775. Yeah. I would like to say we look at the budget and we pick out that much money. I mean, 10,000 goes to Jobs Plus. I was thinking the same thing that Councilman Satterfield was thinking. Why are we paying dues to something when the sheriff needs money? Let's just really quick take a look at this and maybe take 10,000 out of Jobs Plus and 7,775 out of somewhere else, and out of good faith, give something a little extra to the sheriff, because we're talking about this override and increasing the taxes and all this, but we're not willing to take any of this and give it to him. So that I would like to make a proposal or a motion. I would like to make a motion that we give that 1% of the property tax increase to the sheriff in a good faith gesture.
So just to clarify, are you saying should we add to the 300,000, the 17,000, so it would be an increase of
No,
317,000?
I'm saying that we I would like to reword it. Let's see. I'm sorry, I got myself into an awkward spot here. I want to help the sheriff. I want to help the people of Hayden. I don't want this whole. Let me think about it. Can we come back to me in just a minute? Let me think about this.
Well, I believe our discussion, at the end of discussion, we will make a motion to approve this budget. So
Okay. Okay,
let you
so,
think about that.
Sandra, maybe
Yes,
to help
thank
you
you.
out, where your trend of thought was going, this is at least where I thought you were going, is that because from the last meeting, you
Yes.
wanted to reduce the property tax from 3% to 2%.
yes, I did.
And
So I
that-
just got confused.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
what that would do is it would reduce the amount that we would receive in property tax by
Okay.
about 17,000.
Yes.
That's kind of what this slide shows. And so I didn't follow the part about what you wanted to do for the police and how that ties in with that.
Yes. Okay.
So what I heard is you
Okay,
wanted to
so-
reduce the property tax, but give,
Yeah, I'm
Or
sorry, I
the
confused the
police,
two. I would like to, yes, okay, I would like to amend that to reduce instead of a 3% increase, to have just a 2% increase, and therefore helping the taxpayers of Hayden. This would not go towards the sheriff right now. It would just be a good faith gesture to the citizens that we're not taking the full 3%. This is what I proposed last month or in our other meeting. Yeah.
a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I confused that.
Councilmember White, may I
Yes, sir.
try to assist there?
Yes, please help me out here.
I believe that your motion is for the upcoming fiscal year to increase property tax by 2%
Yes.
instead of the 3%.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that?
Thank you.
That's correct? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Do we have any discussion on that? Yes, sir, Councilmember.
You don't have a second on that. If
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. Do we have a second? Councilmember Satterfield, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, hearing no second, the motion fails.
Thank you.
Sure. I would call a motion, please, to read the ordinance by title only, to suspend the rule of reading in full on 3 separate dates, and to approve the first reading. So move. May I have a second? Right here?
Are deliberations complete? Did everybody have an opportunity?
Thank you for mentioning that. Are deliberations complete? Has everyone had an opportunity for input? Thank you for reminding me of that.
So we got to,
Thank you.
so moved.
Now I would like to have a motion to read the ordinance by title only. I heard a move.
Second.
And we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Motion passes.
Well, we got to do a roll call.
Maybe step back. I think there needs to be a motion to approve and then go to that. I'm just wondering if we skipped a step.
You have to approve the budget appropriations first, then the ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, so back up a step.
So motion.
Motion to approve the budget appropriation as presented will be
Okay,
your
I
first.
would like to make the motion to approve the fiscal year 2023 budget appropriations as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second. I'll second.
Second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember White?
No.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
May I hear a motion, please, to read the ordinance by title only, to suspend the rule of reading in full on 3 separate dates, and to approve the first reading?
So moved, we've got it backwards. That's okay. Yes, I make that motion.
Second. And we have a second. Do we have any further discussion?
So,
Motion passes. Oh, I'm sorry.
We got to do a roll call.
Roll call.
No.
is the discussion on the motion only or the reading only? Okay.
Yes.
No comment. Thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Satterfield,
Yes.
Councilmember White.
So this is on the reading only?
Yes.
This is to suspend the rules.
To suspend the rules and allow a reading only.
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes. This is an ordinance entitled the Annual Appropriation Ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2022, appropriating the sum of $40,259,398 to defray the expenses and liabilities of the city of Hayden, Kootenai County, Idaho, for said fiscal year, authorizing a levy of a sufficient tax upon the taxable property and specifying the objects and purposes for which said appropriations is made, providing for a levy of a sufficient tax upon the taxable property within the city to yield $1,841,019 for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2022, providing for severability, providing repeal of conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date. May I hear a motion that the ordinance be adopted on its having passed its first reading by title only, and that it be published by summary incorporating the title as the core of the summary upon passage?
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember White?
No.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
And Councilmember
Yes.
DePriest?
Motion passes. The next item that we have on the agenda tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is the Parks and the Circulation or the Transportation Development Impact Fee Update.
Yeah, you gotta do the
Oh, I did.
resolution.
I'm sorry.
You skipped one.
My fault,
Wait,
folks.
we have the capital improvement.
In line with the budget appropriation, we have the approval of a resolution adopting the FY 2023 to 27 capital improvement plan. Do we have any discussion, comments on that subject? Yes, sir. Do you have, I'm sorry.
We pretty much covered it in the last go-around. And so.
It's the same as
Okay, thank you.
And there have been no changes?
There have been no changes.
Do we have any council comment on that?
Just like that.
Yes.
Highlight that in our capital improvement list here, 5-year, we've got under, it's really hard to see here, but it looks like in 2023, so next year, that we have budgeted $56,000 to construct a sheriff dock. So it's a dock so that they can park a boat there. And so it's just another thing that we have approved to help our law enforcement do their job. So it isn't like we've neglected our, we've added 300,000 more to our law enforcement and we're constructing a dock, and that's a good thing. That's the only comment.
Is there any further discussion? I would call for a motion to approve the FY 2023 to 27 capital improvement plan.
I make a motion to approve the park improvement plan. It's
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Do I-
Capital,
the capital
I'm sorry.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Yes.
Second.
Second.
Do we have any further discussion? Roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember Roder? I'm sorry, Council President Roder, excuse me.
Yes.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
And Councilmember White?
Yes.
The next item that we have is for the Parks and Circulation or the Transportation Development Impact Fee Update.
Number 10, review procedures and open the hearing.
For the city-initiated public hearing, the staff will make a presentation. Council will be able to ask the staff questions. Public will have an opportunity to comment. Council will ask the public questions if there's any comments. The hearing will be closed and council will deliberate. Donna?
So I think we lost our consultant, so I think it's staff that you got for this presentation. They're sharing our screen. So we're going to actually hear two public hearings tonight. They're separate and distinct. The first one is the City of Hayden impact fees related to parks and circulation. Circulation meaning transportation or roadways. Term tends to kind of muck people up. And then after this public hearing and its parts and pieces, then we'll also be looking at the fire and EMS, Kootenai County EMS services, those districts impact fees. I think Chief Riley's in the back. Yes, yeah. He's been waiting a long time, so patience be there. So I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of a, for those in the audience that may or may not understand impact fees, just kind of a brief recap. So Idaho Statute Title 67, Chapter 82 identifies the purpose of impact fees. And if you look at our impact fee code in Title 9, Chapter 2, it's almost a verbatim out of the state statute. It's very, very closely synonymous. And basically, it's to accommodate orderly growth and development and to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of the state of Idaho. It's to promote that orderly growth and to establish a proportionate share of the cost of the new public facilities needed to serve that new growth. You establish those minimum standards for the adoption of the development of the impact fee ordinance. That's the report that kind of establishes that. And you ensure that those who benefit from this new growth and development are required to pay no more than their proportionate share of the cost of those public facilities needed to serve that new growth. And it empowers governmental entities which are authorized to adopt ordinances to impose development impact fees. That's why we have Title 9, Chapter 2. Also in Title 9, Chapter 2, we identified that we can collect and expend development impact fees pursuant to Idaho code. So again, back and forth, we have to follow both our code as well as Idaho code. And it ensures that any capital improvement that we do, any project that we do, is funded wholly or in part with impact fee revenue. It shall be included, first be included in an improved capital improvement plan, that CIP, that lists those projects that may be funded. In other words, you can't use impact fee dollars on anything that's not on the impact fee addressed in the report. So 923 is a section in the ordinance, and it refers to the adopted methodology report. And then throughout the rest of that impact fee code in the Hayden City Code, it refers to the report. So capital improvement plans that are in the impact fee study or in the impact fee report are actually pulled from the Parks Master Plan, which was adopted in January of 2021, and from the Transportation Strategic Plan, which was adopted in February of 2021. Both of those plans completed an inventory of existing conditions. Both plans identified needs of the system, and both plans created capital improvement plans establishing timeframes of expected completion, anticipated, hopeful, whatever, completion. Near term, mid-term, and long-term were the terms used in the Parks Master Plan. Short-term, near-term, and long-term were the terms used in the Transportation Plan. But ultimately, that's 0 to 5 years being the ones that we want to get done first. Mid-term is that 6 to 10 year category, and long-term is someplace after 10 years. So once those long-range plan updates were completed, we met with the Development Impact Fee Advisory Committee, DIFAC, and we started the process of working with two consultants, FCS, and Itiris. Itiris is who did our 2040 transportation strategic plan. We worked with both of them, and a methodology was created or was adopted according to what's allowed in Idaho state statutes. Kind of a back and forth. We wanted to make sure that we had really kind of beat that up and made sure that we had correct amounts in the CIP. We actually went back and brought the capital improvement plan dollars up instead of growing the capital improvement plan dollars by some cost index. We actually went back out and looked at what costs were out there for materials and supplies, as well as dollars for land. And those were both added in and updated to the cost dollars that exist in the impact fee study that you saw a couple of weeks ago at our workshop with City Council. So on July 21st of 2022, the Impact Fee Advisory Committee made a recommendation to approve the report with some minor changes. We started off with 3 separate non-residential impact fees that we charge by. Today we look at it and you've got a kind of an office use, office institutional use, you've got a wholesale warehouse use, and then you've got a retail restaurant use. And sometimes they fit really well in those. We have a lot of those kinds of uses in the city, and sometimes you'd like it to have a little more breadth in your choices. And so we looked at everything from, a few to a lot, and then kind of honed that back in. Questions about trip generation rates and whether or not the ITE, which is the national or international trip generation rates, were looked at. And somebody said we need to look a little bit closer to home. So we looked at KMPO rates as well. And this is kind of a melding of the two to make it more about Hayden. And so kind of the whole report, we went through that workshop, and Exhibit 15 on page 30 of the report shows a 3-year phase-in of the project. One of the things that was noted really early on was that when those fees came back, it was a sizable difference between what they're currently being charged for those non-residential across the board and what they're proposed to be. So this is the current charges that we're charging today. And these are the charges that we're proposing to go to for the first year, and then the second year and the third year. And then every year after that is just showing that 5% annual inflationary rate, not the increase that they were looking at. Part of the reason that the impact fee, and I had wished that John had stuck around, but part of the reason that the impact fee committee did that, there were several reasons. And the first one is it's a balance between what we need, because impact fees are important and we only have one opportunity to get them, and kind of shock value at getting moving forward and continuing to keep some non-residential development moving forward. Yes.
I'm looking at, why aren't there any numbers in the single family line item?
Because they're broken out by square footage. Instead of doing just a single cost per dwelling unit, we based it on size of dwelling unit.
Thank you.
Whereas multifamily is done strictly by per square foot.
But in our previous impact fee for circulation, correct me if I'm wrong, there was just, did it divide up into square footages with different?
It did not.
That's why
those were different. Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Good clarification. Really, I wasn't anticipating presenting, so I'm kind of a little bit off the fly here.
That's okay.
So we recognize that as we move this impact fee schedule forward, that should you approve this study as was presented at the workshop 2 weeks ago, that we would only be approving the later in the resolution, we would only be approving the first year one's fees, and then we would reestablish the Development Impact Fee Committee a year from now, and they would reevaluate these as well, and then recommend another recommendation to choose to do the next increment and the 5% inflation at that time. So this is kind of quirky how you kind of adopt these. Having the public hearing where I'm kind of recapping a little bit for everybody in the audience and what we did in the workshop. We review the study and adopt the study by resolution. Then we amend Title IX, Chapter 2 to reference this report. And that would be the report that's referenced throughout the rest of that code section. And then later on, under new business, we would adopt the new fees that are proposed here, should you approve them, by the resolution that's under new business. Sorry, that's my recap.
Do council members have any questions to ask Donna about this?
Yes.
Councilmember White.
I just want to thank you for all the work you did on this. I was able to sit in on a few of these meetings. It was interesting to see how they came up with the numbers and how they worked through it. I just was wondering if you could tell us the names of the people on this task force or this committee so we can thank them. I'm sorry, I threw you a curveball. I didn't
you really
mean to do
did.
that. I'm sorry.
Chris Meyer, John Young, Steve Hogue, right?
It's not Steve,
Scott.
it's Hogue. Scott Hogue.
Scott Hogue,
Yeah.
that's right. Sean Taylor and John Gentry. If John is unable to make it, Sean comes, he's an alternate. I know I'm missing somebody.
Glenn Miles.
Glenn Miles.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions of Donna? At this point, I would like to invite the public to make any comments that they may have on that. We have no comment cards filled in, but if you would like to make a comment, you're welcome to. Yes, sir. I'm
He's
sorry.
got to fill out a form.
Oh, I've got Jim's around here somewhere.
Not this one. For this, I need it because he needs to indicate whether he's for neutral.
That's true. I'm sorry this sounds well regulated, but it is. Okay, we'll answer your question after the meeting tonight. Thank you, sir. Unless you would like to get up now and make a public comment, you are more than welcome to do that. No,
Just fill
sir.
it out afterwards.
No, sir, you do need to fill out a card.
You're testifying.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he can do it after.
Sure.
This has
Go ahead.
already been on. Yeah.
Yes, yes, me.
I guess the only comment or question I would have is, again, it might be because we're
And
doing
sir,
things in
sir,
quantity.
Could you provide your name and?
Oh, Doug Fredericks, 10312 North Bateman Street, Hayden, Idaho.
Thank you very
And is he
much.
for neutral or
Oh, and
against?
sir, are you for, against, or neutral on the proposal?
For this proposal,
Yes, sir.
I just have a question on it. I'm not against it.
Pick one.
I'm for.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Since multifamily seems to be the biggest point of contention when it comes to future growth in Hayden, it looks to me like the amount being charged, escalating over the years, is very marginal on that versus the single-family residences being quite a bit more extensive increases. Now, maybe you're looking at, because there's multiple units, you're going to get more revenue. But it just kind of jumped out at me that seems to be, again, soft on a developer or somebody that wants to put up apartment buildings. That impact fee, as it escalates, it doesn't really, I guess if I had my way, there'd be almost a deterrent for multifamily. So it's less of a question and more of a comment, I guess.
Thank you for your
Thank you for
comments.
the opportunity. I'll make a card.
Thank you.
Can I ask questions if they have questions or anything?
Does council have any questions? Councilmember White.
I was just going to say that it does look really low there, but that's per square foot. So
Yes.
it's going to be multiplied.
So.
If there are no more questions, this hearing is closed. Council has an opportunity to deliberate. Does council have any comments or questions regarding the proposal? I would simply like to state that I know, because I heard the same thing from Council President Roeder, I was hoping for these numbers to be a silver bullet that would slow things down and provide with lots of money to work with. Unfortunately, I completely understand the methodology, but I was simply a bit disappointed. I completely understand and am in favor of the methodology, however, understand. There are no, yes, sir, Councilman.
I sat in on an impact fee committee 4 years ago roughly, and Connie Kruger was the consultant that was hired to determine those fees and to be considered. And the meeting that I was at, they voted on the impact fees. At that time, my numbers are probably off a little bit, but for a single family resident, it was like $1,200, $1,300. And the proposal was to at least double by Connie, the consultant, to double the impact fee, which the question was, did it meet the code? And she said yes, because that's why she could propose it. And then it was voted down and they had no increase, because the one comment I remember is if you double the impact fee from say $1,200 to $2,400, you'll shut the building down in Hayden. And that was a comment that always rung in my brain. So all this to say that I still believe that those impact fees are way too low and that we need to increase them more than we have there. And I know we had a consultant that hired them, but why was it 4 years ago that it was okay to double them? But now those numbers they're just, in my mind, not appropriate for today's economy. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no more comments, I would call for a resolution adopting, pardon me, I would call for a motion adopting, I would call for a motion adopting the resolution
To adopt the report.
Which adopts the
of the
report.
impact fee report. Thank you very much.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further comments or discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Council President Roeder?
No.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
Motion passes. The next action item that we have, and Chief Riley, we appreciate you folks. staying-
No,
Hold on.
Another
hold on.
step for this one.
The next action item that we have, thank you, is regarding the Title IX, Chapter 2 Development Impact Fees Code Amendment Ordinance. This is another public hearing.
No, this is just a motion.
We just did it.
Your two motions.
Just a second motion to,
It's how to put it all into place.
sorry.
I would,
You just need a motion to suspend the rules of reading the ordinance on 3 separate days.
thank you.
Yep.
Next page. I would call for a motion to read the ordinance by title only, to suspend the rule of reading in full on 3 separate dates, and to approve the first reading.
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second. Is there any further discussion? Is this for the
A roll
ordinance?
call vote.
Is this for the ordinance or
This is to suspend the rules.
to suspend the rules? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
And Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
So now we
Now
do
you
I
read
the
by
ordinance.
title only, yep.
This is an ordinance of the City of Hayden, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, modifying Title IX Building Regulations, Chapter 2 Impact Fees of the Hayden City Code. amending section 9-2-3 to adopt the City of Hayden, Idaho Park and Transportation Development Impact Fee Methodology Report, providing severability, providing repeal of conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date. I now call for a motion that the ordinance be adopted on its having passed its first reading by title only, and that it be published by summary, incorporating the title at the core of the summary upon passage. I have a motion.
Still motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Do we have any further discussion?
I'd like to make just a comment. I
Council
will.
President Roder.
Yeah, I'm going to vote against this purely on the circulation impact fees that they're too low. That's, I guess, more of a protest vote because it's going to pass, but we need to find another mechanism other than putting growth on the taxpayers. This is one mechanism and it's way too low. So I'm going to vote no. And I just want to explain my vote.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Roder,
No.
Councilmember Satterfield,
Yes.
and Councilmember DePreez.
Yes. Motion passes. 3C, the Fire and Emergency Medical Service District's development impact fees to be collected by the City of Hayden on behalf of the districts. We call for
Is Ann, I can't see.
I
Is
think
she-
Ann's on as well.
Mr. Mayor, we have,
Yes, sir.
I was just going to say, we have Chief Riley here who can answer questions. And also in our last meeting, our workshop, we had Ann Westcott, who's their consultant, putting their impact fees together, is also on the line if you feel like you want to ask any questions or go through any brief.
Thank you very much.
I think that he just recapped the slide.
Okay.
We need to open.
All yours.
Oh, and first I need to open the hearing.
Okay,
Thank you.
and then that's the change in fee. Just because you weren't here and.
Thank you.
So I'll leave that with you and I'll take this with me.
Honorable Mayor, council members, staff, thank you. Pat Riley, Fire Chief, Northern Lakes Fire. Protecting Hayden, Rathdrum, everything in the middle. And also I'm here with, in absence of Chief Bill Keeley for Kootenai County EMS, I have Tracy Abrahamson. She's the executive director, otherwise known as the real boss at Kootenai County Emergency Medical Services. I don't want to belabor this. I can stand for questions. Everything that was said prior in the last report in accordance with Idaho State Code. This is 11 years in the process, and I'm very proud that we're at this point. Planning and zoning commissions have due past recommendation to the city council. I would just be happy to stand for any questions or to tell you without going through a full capital improvement plan that we've been working on for the last 11 years. I defer back to the board. We have Galena Consulting and Westcott is online, and I have Ms. Tracy who can speak to anything with regard to the capital improvement plan for the, I call it the system, but Kootenai County Emergency Medical Services.
Thank you. Council members, do we have any questions of anyone? Hearing no questions, want to give the public an opportunity to make any comments on that? We have one commenter, Mr. Art Collins. Mr. Collins, would you care to make any comments on the issue in front of us here?
Yeah, pass this out to everybody.
Thank you, and we'll give one to the clerk. Thank you very much.
Know what I'm saying here. Art Collins, 1214 Glenmore Court, Hayden, Idaho. General comment. We are a republic of democratic principles and a land of laws. The foundational basis for ordinances, land use for like parks, transportation, sewer, and proposed fire EMS, the foundational basis for that is the comprehensive plan. The goals, objectives, and actions of the comprehensive land use plan. I present this not as an antagonist, but as a kind way. I'm trying to be kind, sharing my experience as a comprehensive planner. What is included in the comprehensive plan, namely goals, policies, and action. Those are requirements. If you're gonna do comprehensive planning, you have to have goals, policies, actions, period. We have an impact fee policy. Number 9, page 10, I'll read it for you. Regularly evaluated and update impact fees for the support of transportation system and parks and require developer participation, land donation, and mitigation. Parks, transportation. Then the other action in the plan is short-term impact fee task. Number 10, appendix IV. Establish a steering committee to review and propose amendments to development requirements as it pertains to implementing transportation impact fee and or utility impact fee to maintain level of services and support growth. That's what's in the plan. What is not in the plan? What is not in the plan? If I'm wrong or miss that, tell me. Call me and tell me that. I've read the plan entirely. There is no impact fee goal. You have to, it's required. Goal, policy, action. There's no one impact fee goal. And fire and EMS development impact fees are not in the plan. Why do we leave that out? It's not there. It's only transportation and parks. Okay, so with this submission, in a kind way, I do this kindly now. The plan is not in compliance with Idaho State Code. And the impact fee ordinances or whatever regulations have no legal foundation. It's not in the plan, you're done. And the financial requirements as per ordinance also have no legal foundation because you're collecting fees as per a Coeur d'Alene Press article for residential, non-residential transportation and sewer capitalization. They were in the paper. I have it right here. So my recommendation is, here we go again. We, the people, taxpayers, amend the plan with a goal affirmation of impact fees. Put the goal in there. But we, the people, do it. Not the council, not the planning people, no, not the mayor. We, the people, put in the goal. There's no goal for impact fees. Put it in there. And then amend the policy number 9 to explicitly state what land uses are subject to impact fees. You explicitly state what land uses explicitly are subject to impact fees. 3, and affirm a task or an action item for each of the land uses that are subject for impact fees. And then complete an analysis that describes how it is determined that the said dollar amount of impact fees is intended to adequately meet the 2040 costs. And then coordinate the capital improvement plan with impact fees and designate service areas of Hayden by which the impact fees are to be collected. As a kind citizen, I love you guys. Here it is. We need some work on the comprehensive plan. It is the basis, the foundation, the legal foundation of everything. And there's something missing.
We want to be in compliance with state law, right? Not against it, or not in compliance. I said what I said. You got any questions? I'll answer. Does the council have any questions of Mr. Collins? Thank you, sir.
Or neutral or against.
Oh, Mr. Collins, there is one thing. Are you neutral for or against the proposal?
I'm saying there, you've got a problem with impact fees with a comprehensive plan, period.
May I say that you are neutral?
Not neutral. I'm not neutral about the comprehensive plan. It's not in comprehensive, it's not in compliance with state law. It's not. That's all. We can fix it, but we, the people, fix it.
Thank you, Mr.
We, the
Collins.
people, will fix it. You guys will all get together and we'll fix it.
Thank
Do
you.
that.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Thank you for your comment. For those that may not be aware of this, the legislature recently provided fire and EMS with the opportunity to collect impact fees. However, fire and EMS have no mechanism to collect impact fees. And the city of Hayden has agreed to do that for, Ms. Rudy, if you could tell me, how much will the city be charging for each of the impact fees that we collect for?
It was on the slide.
Is it $20?
It's $20.
$20,
Flat fee, but that's for both fire and EMS.
both fire and EMS, and that covers our processing costs.
But it's not in the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comment. Do I have any more questions or comments from council? Hearing is closed. Chief Riley, thank you very much. We appreciate your help. And if you would remain up there, if we have any questions, we may direct them right back.
Here till tomorrow.
You just may.
Council, do we have any deliberations? Any questions or comments that the council may have?
I have a comment question, I guess.
Councilmember DePriest.
Thank you. Did Mr. Collins give legal a copy of this? And I don't know whether you'd be able to answer it off the top, but for maybe just education. The bullet points of the plan is not in compliance with Idaho code. The impact fee ordinance have no legal foundation. The financial requirements per ordinance also have no legal foundation. And can you comment on to whether those are factual?
You are in statutory compliance to adopt impact fees this evening.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Unless somebody else has a comment. I know.
No, sir.
I'd
Councilmember
like to-
President Roder, please go ahead.
I just want to say that I think that, well, I know that the impact fees that the legislature has finally put forth and approved to do this is a great idea. It allows a way for growth to pay for growth. And that is really critical, and it's a common problem throughout the state of Idaho. The cities are facing is how do you pay for the growth, and then try to find people that you can hire. That's another side issue. So anyway, I just want to say that I agree with this 100%. It's needed. I wish it would have happened a long time ago. And I just want to thank our chief for doing a great job on it.
Thank you. So for item 3I, we are looking at a Title IX code amendment for fire and emergency medical service development impact fee ordinance. Donna, could you give us just a brief explanation of that, please?
So the ordinance establishes, just like Title IX, Chapter 2 establishes, how we can collect it, how it gets assessed, how they could do independent assessments, evaluations. It establishes how it works anyway. At the end of that ordinance, are also, we're going to insert the capital improvement plans for both the Northern Lakes Fire Protection District as well as Greene County EMS, so that their CIPs will get adopted. Those will be the CIPs that are like adopted in our report. When we approved our report and included it in our ordinance, it included the CIP. In this case, their ordinance will include the CIP directly in it instead of as a subset report as well, because they adopt their reports. We don't adopt their reports. And then at the very end of that, there are 2 intergovernmental agreements that address how we collect funds and transfer them to the districts as far as the financial arrangement. And so once those are approved, after the ordinance is approved, they all kind of happen at the same time, then they get attached and codified as well.
Okay.
Is that good?
Thank you.
Okay. Pawn and I have lived and breathed these things.
Does council have questions? Councilmember White.
So do these impact fees, Donna, do these impact fees for the Northern Lakes Fire tie into our comprehensive plan for the city of Hayden?
So the statute that allows the collection of impact fees for public safety was adopted after our comprehensive plan was adopted, first and foremost. Second to that, the requirement that each of the agencies have their own capital improvement plan is what ties it back to the statutory allowance to collect the impact fee for them. The reason they can't collect their own impact fee is because they're multi-jurisdictional. We have boundaries. We have solidified boundaries, but they don't. They have to go into all of the other jurisdictions to operate. But it's our job, and the ordinance also requires that we assess this and analyze this impact fee on an annual basis with our impact fee committee. So we had to verify with them that they have adopted an appropriate capital improvement plan for their district. And then we can bring forward the collection of the fee. They will pay us $20 per application, per permit for doing this. And then we transfer the money over to them. We are not retaining any responsibility for the administration of the use of that impact fee money. We carry no liability for that. It's their responsibility on their end to follow Idaho code, utilize the funds appropriately, pay them back if they're not used. So we are just the mechanism that code allows them to use to collect the impact fee. Did that answer your question? It was a long answer.
So in short, our comprehensive plan does not cover fire and rescue.
It wouldn't. If we had our own internal within our city fire department, it would. If we had our own police department, it would. We don't have to have a public safety master plan, if you will, like we do for sewer and transportation and parks, because we don't carry those services as a city. They're not a service we provide as a city. We utilize another district for those services.
Okay, thank you.
Why don't we see that in the plan? We don't.
We can visit on a later time regarding the plan if you would like. Now is not an appropriate time.
Does council have any other? Sorry, sir. Does council have any other questions or deliberations? I would call for a motion to read the ordinance by title only, to suspend the rule of reading in full on 3 separate dates, and to approve the first reading. So moved. Second. Is there any further discussion or comments? Councilmember Satterfield, be free to jump in anytime you'd like here.
Okay, thank you.
This is an ordinance of the...
Let me do a roll call though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Could I have a roll call vote on that, please?
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
And Council President Roeder?
Yes. This is an ordinance of the City of Hayden, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, adding Title IX Building Regulations, Chapter 3, Fire and EMS Districts Development Impact Fees, providing severability, providing repeal of conflicting ordinances, and providing an effective date. May I please hear a motion that the ordinance be adopted on having its passed its first reading by title only and that it be published by summary incorporating the title as the core of the summary upon passage.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePriest?
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes. Our next item is the Northern Lakes Fire Protection District intergovernmental agreement for the collection of development of impact fees.
It's just the document that allows us to pass, collect money and.
To collect fees for another jurisdiction.
Thank you, that's it.
That's what I
Gives us the authority.
You were there. Okay, thank you. Do council members have any questions or comments of Donna on this? Hearing none, I call for a motion to approve the Northern Lakes Fire Protection District intergovernmental agreement for the collection of development impact fees.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Are there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
And Councilmember White?
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 3C3, the Kootenai County Emergency Medical Services Intergovernmental Agreement for the collection of development impact fees, which I suspect you are going to tell us is exactly the same as the one we just approved, except it is for emergency medical services.
That's correct.
Okay.
I'll make that motion to approve it as stated.
Second.
It's been made and seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes. Thank you. Motion passes. Our new business item, number 5, we have a fee schedule update resolution.
So now that you have approved the fire district impact fees, we have to add those to our fee schedule. And those are $1,302 for residential for fire and $130 for EMS for residential, and non-residential per square foot are 65 cents for fire and 7 cents per square foot for EMS. So when we have a building permit that comes in, we look at that building permit and we're going to assess it a fire and an EMS fee. We're also going to assess it a city impact fee for parks and for transportation if it's residential. And if it's non-residential, we're going to be looking at the per square footages for fire and EMS and for cities transportation. Non-residential doesn't pay a park impact fee. So the $20 administration fee is a fee over and above those collected impact fees for fire. That covers our staff time in community development, and it covers finances time in the transition of those funds after they leave our department. So that's what these fees are, since those are approved as we talked about. And then the amended fees for the city parks and transportation impact fees as proposed by the recommendation from the planning, from the development impact fee committee, included the ones that are on the shown here with year 1 as shown that were approved in the study as approved. And the resolution before you is to amend the fees on the city's impact fees to these and to add the fire and the EMS as approved
Donna, when will they go into effect?
on the resolution. It's either the 15th or the 1st. I was messing around with both dates because I don't know how fast Abby can get them to publish.
Thank you,
I was
Don.
shooting for the 1st, but I don't think we can get it there by then. So I think it's the 15th.
Open it up to council discussion.
For clarification, was that September 15th?
It's on the resolution, though. Whoever has the resolution.
Yeah, the
15th.
Thank you.
15?
September. And I would like to call for a motion to approve a resolution that the city of Hayden, Kootenai County, Idaho has setting fees for services that would otherwise be funded by property tax revenues.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
We've timed this. We practiced. I just have one comment I'd like to make. Although I do not approve the circulation fee for the single-family residents, they're too low. This is so important for fire and EMS that I will vote no or vote yes for the whole thing, but I still don't like the impact fees for circulation. Just want to clarify that.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, you did have a question, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask Councilman Roeder to elaborate on that a little more, please, on your statement. Could you elaborate on your
Yeah, I'm just saying, again, I'm repeating myself because I voted no on the circulation impact fee because they're too low, in my opinion. They should be higher. So we're voting on the change of this resolution to amend our fees, and they're both included, the impact fees for EMS and fire and circulation. I don't want to vote no on this because it's so important for EMS and fire. So I'm going to vote yes on this, but I still don't like the circulation impact fees because they're too low.
Thank you.
Do we have any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember Dupree?
Yes.
Well,
Made it.
we made it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience here. We have city administrator reports.
Just one real quick, and I was going to mention, again, on the impact fees, I think the other cities and the county, there might be a couple minor ones, have all approved the EMS and the fire as well, because Northern Lakes covers county, city of Rathdrum, city of Hayden, a couple other minor municipalities, and I think there might be a couple minor ones they're still working on, but I believe Rathdrum and the county have approved theirs, just by way of information. And I believe, looking at these numbers, if it, matters, I do believe adding one plus the increases we've made, our impact fees will probably be the highest in the county. The highest, if that, just way of information for Council President Roeder. And so they are important in trying to have growth pay for itself. So just a general comment. The other thing I was going to mention, I know one of you mentioned a concern with Jobs Plus, or their new official name is actually Coeur d'Alene EDC. It's the Economic Development Arm. And on September 7th, we have purchased a table for the mayor and council to be at their annual meeting. And so you'll be able to hear, they'll give a report on what they're doing and provide information. And so anyways, just those of you that are concerned with what they're doing, that's a good opportunity. So hopefully all of you can attend on September 7th at 11:30. I do believe the public can also participate, purchase tickets to go to that. It's again, Jobs Plus or Coeur d'Alene EDC annual meeting. I think the governor is also going to be making some comments, either live or online, that meeting. So,
Do you know where that's going to be?
Where?
Yeah.
It's at the Coeur d'Alene Resort.
Ooh.
So that's all I need tonight. We've gone long enough.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
No.
Won't be long.
Thank you, Brett. We now have a mayor and council roundtable discussion. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say?
Real quick, it was brought up earlier during public input, and not always do we agree with everybody on everything, but this was brought to my attention earlier. And it is in regard to the standards of approval, the previous standards of approval and the new standards of approval that are in the current comprehensive plan. And I do agree that we need to revisit them. There are some concerning issues related what they omitted or changed and from the previous to the current. And I'd like to ask council if they're interested in maybe having at the very least a workshop to take a look at this situation and discuss whether we want to move forward with possibly adding maybe some or all of the previous standards of approval back in to the comprehensive plan.
Council members, do we have any comments, concerns, observations about that?
I'd like to look at it, yeah. I think that we need to.
I agree.
Okay. Councilmember Satterfield?
Clarification, Councilman.
Oh, yes.
There are not
Yeah.
standards of approval in the comprehensive plan. They are in the zoning code.
Right, correct. The one, I guess there's several of them. There's zone amendments for special uses. I'm assuming that there are several different, because I'm looking at, let's see, 1113.3.
That's your code. That's
right, code.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'd be code text amendment. I'm sorry. Yeah, I got that confused. So yeah, it's not the comprehensive plan. It is the code text related to standards of approval. Okay.
I still agree with that.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
Well, perhaps in the very near future, we could schedule a workshop on that. That'd be good.
Sounds good.
Right. We will somehow make that happen. Anything else? Councilmember White?
Yes, I was just going to say we've made a lot of strides towards transparency by video recording our regular council meetings and our planning and zoning meetings. And I'm proposing that we make a practice to routinely record the special and emergency meetings of the council. Because these meetings are very important and to have available on video due to many factors. People may not be aware of them or miss out on going. The meetings are perhaps at different times. Last week, we had a meeting at 3 o'clock, and sometimes they're at 10 in the morning. And it's more likely that at one of these meetings, an important decision will be made that needs to be recorded. So I would just like to propose that we make it a practice to routinely record special and emergency meetings.
Council members, how do you feel about that? If we can have a consensus, we'll proceed, or not, we'll take it up as an agenda item.
Could we maybe, we had this discussion a little bit, maybe just to clarify. So I spoke with Michael just as far as, time, because that will add a couple hours. So differentiate between our special meetings, because a workshop is a special meeting, and I think we discussed that a workshop still would not need to be recorded, but a special meeting where maybe there's a decision made or otherwise that we could do that. It just creates additional work for Michael and our city clerk, but we talked about it, and so we're okay, would recommend that's okay, we could do that, but just the clarification, it doesn't include like the workshops.
So but some special meetings and some emergency meetings are still only the council where the council makes decisions. I would say it's a decision-making meeting that needs to be recorded. Not so much a workshop where we're just talking about things, even though I would like those recorded in the future, but right now I'm saying meetings where the city council is going to make a decision.
And again, it's up to the mayor and council. I just was throwing it out there because your pleasure. I just wanted to, after we discussed that, I asked Michael, what's the increase in load? Because he's already, at capacity, but we don't have special meetings that are decision-making that often. And so I think it should be fine. And so I wanted to let at least on a staff level, we can accommodate that. Again, you can tell us however you want to do that. That's your prerogative.
I'm all for the special meeting, or the decision-making issues, not the, yeah.
I agree with that.
President Roder?
Yeah, I like the idea.
Councilmember Satterfield, your feelings?
Emergency meetings, would that include executive session?
No.
No, it would not.
Okay.
Okay, then I'm okay with it.
Okay, all right.
Can I ask?
Yeah, he's got-
So emergency meetings, those are sometimes called and held quickly for an emergency. And so what if Michael's not available or we don't have the video?
Good point.
Could they just do an audio recording as a backup plan?
We always do.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
And minutes always do.
I think we should take that into consideration when we have an emergency meeting. Is there video available, or should someone just have their camera going, their phone camera? I really think this, if there's a decision to be made by the city council, it needs to be recorded on video for posterity and for convenience of people being able to view it later. I feel strongly.
The chain of command of the video, it should not be a personal cell phone. It should be a piece of recording equipment owned and operated by a city employee.
Okay.
Brett, or perhaps one of our city attorneys, can you just tell me what is the basis for emergency meetings? What is the parameters of emergency meetings? The ones that I'm thinking of, we may very well not be able to, such as a windstorm. We have power lines that are down. We have city problems. We may not be able to get a video recording of that quickly. And I hope that everyone realizes that there are situations like that where we just may not have the capability of doing it.
And in some form of imminent harm, be able to articulate some form of imminent harm. So, to justify an emergency meeting that doesn't meet the notice requirements.
I would say as far as we're able to record those meetings and to make it clear for the meeting if it is not being recorded or if it's being recorded.
We can identify that in the minutes, that it wasn't recorded and why it wasn't recorded.
But I would like to know before the meeting starts.
Yeah.
The meeting is going to be video recorded. It's not video recorded.
Yeah, there could be a situation where if it's a true, health safety issue and we're making decisions, that it may be something that you have to be very careful in recording. I'm thinking of a situation we were in a fire. It was a major fire that was threatening the city, and we had to get together, and it was there. There were things discussed on how you approach that and what you do, and you have to make decisions. And so maybe as long as when it's an emergency like that we give it some consideration, or move forward with emergency, because sometimes you're not in an emergency. You're not thinking about, are we recording this? You're thinking about somebody's life is maybe in danger, and we've got to make a quick decision.
Yeah. So the reason I brought this forward was last week on Tuesday, we had a meeting at 3, so it was at an odd time. It was a special meeting, and we did make a very important decision that I think I myself wanted to look back on it. So I do have the audio recording, but the video recording just says so much more. So that's what prompted this, and just in the spirit of recording meetings, I would like us to at least make an attempt to record as many of the decision-making meetings as possible.
We can do that.
Mayor, may I offer a suggestion?
Yes, sir, please.
Maybe if we made this an agenda item, that would give staff, council, the mayor, everybody to have input on definitions of what emergency and special meetings are. So it's very clear to everyone what Sandra's talking about. Because I'm a little, I just like to see definitions so we all know what we're talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
One last thing. Sorry. At the last Harbors meeting, August 18, 2022.
Just a minute. I think we need to finish.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's finish up this discussion. If there are questions about that, we probably should make it an agenda item.
Agreed.
Okay. We will make it an agenda item.
I was going to say, to save you some time, we could maybe think through and just give you some, we've got it, she's okay, that we do something different in an emergency, we could come up with something and give it to you, or just administratively come up with something.
Administratively,
I'm okay with it. I appreciate Roger's
Does that work for everyone?
sentiment, but I don't want to overtax you guys with.
Councilmember Satterfield, does that work okay for you?
Sure.
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Last quick item, and it's something I just want to bring up to the council, and it's concerning our Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board. Roger is our designated person to vote on behalf of the city, and I'm a number 2 as a second person on it. In our last meeting in August, this is what is the capacity of the sewer plant? And every month we get a statement that how many connections are available. Now, as of this last month, there was 1,173 residential connections available at the sewer plant. Why I bring this up is that we currently have 25 subdivisions in various processes. And I think we just need to be very watchful that we have the ability to fulfill, when we approve a subdivision, the amount of hookups. I'm not saying we don't have enough now. It's just something that we need to be thinking about and have our finger on that pulse as we go into the future with these 25 developments that are in process. And that's the only thing I have.
Thank you. There is no other roundtable discussion. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor, can I say something, please?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I just want to thank staff for their diligent work on the budget. I've done budgets for many, many years. It's not an easy thing to do because we all have a wish list and then we have a reality list. So thank you very much to the staff. Thank you very much to Abby for all the hard work she does. And I really appreciate when we make comments, she doesn't roll her eyes. She keeps her demeanor about her. And I also want to thank the safety task force on their recommendations, because being part of those meetings, I know the effort and the sincerity that was put into it. So thank you, sir.
Seconded.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.